Welcome everyone to the Monday, February the 13th, our pre-Valentine's Day meeting of the Committee of the Whole Administration and Operations. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. If there are no changes or anything to add or take it. So any changes to the agenda at all? Seeing none, I need a mover for that. Moved by Councilor Chris Ward. I need a seconder. Councilor Waddy Smale, all in favor? Good. Moving on, the disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Does anyone have any disclosures to make tonight? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to business arising from previous committee of the whole meeting minutes. So does anyone have any business arising from those minutes? Everybody's happy with them? All right. Are they errors and omissions as well, Rebecca, or clerk? Sorry.
Through the chair, they have already been approved. If you see anything glaringly obvious that we've missed a council and more than one to accept that. But if it's anything other than that,
Okay, good, thank you. So seeing and hearing none, delegations and presentations, we do not have any. Discussion items, we don't have any, and we're down to 7A, which is under action and information items. It is the 2022 fourth quarter building report. CAO, I see that the chief building official is here. Is he doing the report tonight?
So through the chair, as well, I have chief building official last week to the report.
All right. Welcome, good.
You want me to read it or
Just high level. I think we should have all read it.
Well, as you can see, the fourth quarter report shows that we're actually the building permits for new housing is down by about 9 years before, and the construction values are also down as a result of basically we're missing 9 houses, so that's fairly significant. And we want to be at 35 and 26 this year. Overall, if you were to look at your summaries on the spreadsheet, you'll see that there is an increase really in construction value for new homes as compared to what we had last year. So basically, we built less homes than we would have built last year. 25 to 26 homes is an average for this municipality. So compared to the year before, it is a bit more exceptional.
Good. Thank you for that. I will open to the committee for questions regarding CDO's fourth quarter building report. Does anyone have any questions on the CDO? Yeah, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Really chair to the chief buildings. The reason we're down 9, do you believe? What's the answer? Is there an answer? Do you believe, or could it be our bylaw that was kind of on hold there until we?
The building permit fees haven't had any impact at all on construction. I think the one thing that is most significant is that we have 3 major builders in this municipality, and not one of them this year built a house. So when you think about that, they're all 3 of them have land bases or vacant lots available, but they didn't build houses this year. That in itself is significant, and I just think it's kind of time with mortgage being so expensive and building materials being expensive and the cost of construction going up. People are just waiting.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Spur anyone to comment? No. To the CBO, just following up on that, the three builders that you referred to in the municipality, they built no houses or no houses in our municipality?
I'm sorry.
The builders that you referred to, the three builders from the municipality, you said they built no houses. Did you mean that they built no houses in Edwardsburg Cardinal, or that they built no houses in Bennett?
They didn't build any houses here in Edwardsburg.
Right, they built houses,
They built houses, yes, but not in Edwardsburg.
just not in our township, right? And so I guess my question, to you would be, if they're building houses somewhere else and they're not building them here, is there anything that we can do, through your discussions with them that are preventing them? Do we have bylaws in place? Is there anything that's preventing them from opening up and building?
Well, you know that one of the major builders in this area is now working towards subdivision, opening up new subdivision. Hopefully that one where it's seen. The other two they just have land bases in very different municipalities, and at the same time they have here, but I guess there isn't anybody in the rest of the building. Or buying a lot of
I just struggle to think that, with everything that the province has done over the last year, the different bills that have come on board to try to make houses get built, faster, that we're building less. And I understand the increase in the cost. We put more value in and built less homes, so the cost obviously has an effect on it. But if they're building around us, they're not choosing us. We need to figure out what.
The other thing we have to look at too is that we also had some additional housing, secondary housing going into some homes. So it's taken a while to catch on, but we have one he'd be a landlord really, but he's been purchasing properties where he can actually put a second residence in them. So that's starting to catch on.
Yeah. Good.
So are they taking advantage then of the county's program, or are they just taking it on their own?
Well, they're being aware.
Nobody has taken advantage.
Nobody has
I
taken
can speak to that. I know that nobody has taken advantage. Lots of people have acquired. Nobody's taken advantage.
Yeah, and you did that, the way you asked the questions, they built in other townships for sure, it sounds like, but did they build the same amount of homes or did they build less homes? Do we know that question, or is that something you're privy to? Like, did they build less homes overall?
I couldn't tell you that.
When the interest rates are high, we have two levels of government pushing against each other, the same rope in a tug of war. It's expensive, and the financing is even more expensive. So it's a challenge these days for sure.
If no one else has anything else to add, we're just receiving, right? We don't have to have a motion, no motion there, right? There's no recommendation. So we're on to report B, which is the bylaw report. Again, Mr. CEO, does that come through building or does that come through every year?
Mr. Chair, I'll have the clerk speak to the bylaw report.
So it should be coming through, shouldn't it?
Through the chair. It was a busy season again for the fourth quarter. Bylaw responded to 39 calls service, and overall for 2022, we received and responded or created ourselves 217 calls. There are some still outstanding. There's still 17 cases remaining in various states of compliance. A lot of them are to do with clean yards that were uptaken in the third and fourth quarter that are carrying forward into the spring with snow and everything. It's a little bit harder to do a lot of things that have to do with clean yards. On a good note, there were 2 properties that we were dealing with since 2018 with clean yards. Back in December, the individual attended court, pled guilty, and now we have an order to hold that individual accountable for a 90-day compliance. If not, the township has full rights to go in and do proper maintenance and clean up for future.
For clarity, I'm assuming that's the one that is 8 phone calls, 15 emails, 20 site visits. I think it's the only one that goes back to 2018.
That would be correct, the 0165. It is still technically open in our work orders until we can complete the final order issue for the 90 days to ensure compliance. They'll remain on there until we can ensure one way or the other is full compliance.
All right, let's open it up for discussion at the table. Anyone, comments, questions for the clerk in regard to the fourth quarter bylaw report?
Well, I do the chair to our clerk. We just have I can thank our bylaw officer for the job he's doing, and when people say that, you know, I hear it's our land and all this, and we're not working with him, it shows that he goes that extra mile to work and try to resolve the issues that we have. So, and I'm probably was the worst, if you can remember. Why would you visit so many times? But he is trying to work with these people. So just thank our bylaw officer for that work he's doing, and hopefully he can make an example of cleaning things up. So thank you.
Through the chair, I mean, you can't help but notice that the work orders, total number of work orders has come down over the last 3 years. Is that a good trend, or we're just getting less reported into it?
Through the chair, we have seen a slight decrease over the last year. The first 2 years of COVID did result in a substantially higher number of calls. In a lot of cases, had to do people working from home, more familiar with their neighbors, a little bit on edge with everything else going on in the world. So we found there was those calls that would usually get rectified with just speaking with one another. People weren't doing that for fear of, they didn't want to go in public, they didn't want to be face to face, but instead they wanted us to rectify a lot of those minor things that on a day-to-day basis wouldn't necessarily get called in the process.
Thank you.
Good. I just have like, oh, sorry, answers.
Through the chair to Debbie Burke. When we have a bylaw, is there a certain time, or does the bylaw also set that? Have the action number, is that? in
Chair, we have a bylaw policy that gives general basis. For timeframes, we are pretty lenient whenever we're trying to get people to work with us to gain compliance. If somebody says, you know, yeah, we gave them 3 weeks, I need 5, you know, there's certain circumstances, we're more than willing to work with them if they show that they are actually taking steps forward.
Anyone else? My question comes to the summons part, and I'm wondering if folks are having the ability to get court dates booked, and if in getting those court dates booked, has there been any discussion or any question over the length that it's taken for them to actually get to court?
Through the chair, multiple part there.
Yeah,
We
sure.
all know the issues surrounding it right now with the lack of justice fees. That's the main delay. Other individuals that have received summons, nobody has contacted the bylaw officer or I saying, oh, I want to look this up. We've contacted POA multiple times saying, where's the status of this? Where's the status of this ticket, etc., etc. Sometimes we make leeway, other times we're just told it's a key. There's no real rhyme or reason. That it has been a steady, positive response compared to the last 2.5 3 years of COVID. We have seen the response from POA pick up in the last 6 months or so. They've been pushing a little bit faster. Before that, it was the one with the teeth. We were waiting over a year plus to deal with a simple matter.
Yeah, it's been, you know, mentioned on many occasions that, or at least to me, that you know, the satellite offices that you know, were so effective are not reopening, or at least at this point, they haven't been funded to reopen, so. Again, I'm assuming usually that goes back to the JPs, but there's also a due process, and you know, how long you know, will it go, like 2018 till 2023 is a long time, right? So I understand when it comes to that. I'm just, my question was more had anyone complained as far as the process at this point?
Through the chair, not to my recollection. It really all depends on what the case is. If it's a simple parking ticket, it may be processed within 6 months. The one from 2018 you're referring to, there was a lot of back and forth between the property owner, the bylaw officer, myself, legal. It wasn't as simple as just the delay in court. That was a major factor.
Right.
But we tried to work with the individual in many cases, so that kind of.
And just because a file opened in 2018 doesn't mean that the summons came until 2021 or something like that.
For that one in particular, I believe the
Doesn't.
summons was issued.
It doesn't matter, it's okay.
2020 after.
Yeah, right. So it hasn't been that long, realistically, especially with the courts closed too.
Correct, it was just on our books since then.
Yeah, no, I guess in my mind, I was equating the created date with the summons date, and that's not accurate. So that's where I was just starting to think of 2020, you know, is sort of understandable with 2018, so a long time, but if the summons didn't come till middle of COVID, then it really is correct. Yeah, okay. Good, thank you for that. Further questions? Anyone? No. Okay, so thank you, clerk. Appreciate it. We are, and I know who this one is, the C, which is the fourth quarter treasurer's report. Mr. Nixon.
Thank you, good chair. What you have in your package is 5 reports, all of the pre-audit reports for the year end. Our audit is scheduled to be February 27th to March 3rd. So we're on track for that. The one key thing in the report to highlight is we've had 6 straight years of reduction in lowering of our percentage of tax receivables, sorry, AFS going every year, which is nice. Shows the diligence that the staff is doing. I'll go through the pre-audit reports. On the first report, the one thing to note is our AR is a little bit higher than what we would normally see. RSL is behind in payments to us. We've been in communication with them to they're improve financing and that's done. If we're thinking about that, all of these numbers are essential pitching after audit. As far as the schedule of long-term debt, nothing really concerned here. Some of the smaller ones are following on with the truck and the running motor. The largest eventually continues to be the Cardinal Arena, and we'll have further significant amount of money. On the capital report, the thing that I want to highlight here, and this is going to be relevant to our discussion on the 21st when we talk budget. We had an approved capital budget of basically $5.5 million. Only $3.5 million was actually spent. So we'll need to look at that when we look at the budget to see what is a reasonable amount that we can tackle this year, because there is quite a bit in work in progress. Reserves continue to be really strong. So bit of a milestone. We're over $10 million in reserves, which is excellent. It will help us as we have really big projects coming due, like County Road 2, which we'll talk about as that moves forward, and then also just to catch up on construction. So we're in a good spot that way. Our taxes receivable, again, continuing to go down, nothing of note there, other than you're seeing we are collecting
on our prior years, so 17, 18, and 19. And especially 2020 and 21, those balances have all gone down. So we have collected quite a bit of those amounts that are in arrears. So the township is in an excellent spot. And that is those reports.
All right, before I open the floor to comments and questions on the fourth quarter treasury report, I think that staff, especially the treasurer and I think the previous treasurer and definitely all the staff in the department, when it comes to the tax receivables, you know, over the last, I think it's the last 6 or 7 years, that number has gone from 11% down below 4% as a percentage, and that is fantastic. So you know, I think well done. You know, yeah, thank you. Okay, now I'll open the floor to questions. Who has questions? Nobody?
I have a question. I just noticed I have a question, and I forgot to give you a heads up on it, so I apologize, Mr. Treasurer. But I did just notice that the balance of, say, cash plus taxes receivable dropped from about 7.4 million to about 3.8 million, 3.8 million from last year. That probably September 30th to the end of the year. Is there an easy, quick answer on that one? Okay.
So that's all in Johnstown grade products.
Okay.
So we paid a lot of those invoices in December. So it really did clear cash. So that is why we're still kind of sitting around 3.2 million in the bank. And it should go as the interim tax bills go up, and we'll see that money.
So not a matter of concern then. We won't be at zero at the end of this quarter. Thank you.
And we did do a draw, hopefully we do a draw structure loan as well. So our first quarter draw. So our cash position is fine, while it is lower than it has been in the past. It is due to those big projects.
Good. Comments, further questions? Absolutely.
To the chair, it may not be for you, to the treasurer, maybe more to the CEO. Why are we waiting for, what's an ECA? Could you fill me in on that? Or maybe help me out.
Through the chair, the ECA's environmental compliance approval. And just could you refer to the
Sophia Mary Street on page 19 of 141.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, and we're saying we're waiting on Sophia Street. Sophia is completed, but we don't have a bill from Coco Paving. Is that why? Because of the ECA?
I'd have to look into that.
I think we didn't see the approval because it was.
That's on the public reports on page 19. I'm just curious why that. I can understand Mary because the paving isn't done, but supply is completely done.
Okay, so through the chair, that status of project in the
Yeah, it's all done.
so that was from a previous status report. So the ECA has been approved, and naturally work has started. So that's just there.
Thank you.
My apologies.
No, that's fine.
There's a couple of things that I want to point out on this as well, especially as we head into budget and going back to page 18. You know, I think it's worthwhile noting that in 2022, you know, items 3 and 4 came off of the long-term debt list. And in 23, I believe the JRDR comes off, which is item number 7. So those payments come out of the long-term debt. And then in 24, there's 3 more that come off, which are number 2, number 5, and number 6. So while it doesn't seem like a lot, that payment per year is a pretty sizable amount. And, you know, going into and having to borrow for both the Johnstown and Spencerville drainage projects and the upcoming, if it gets approved, the upcoming Cardinal project, you know, these numbers that are already here will be going out as new numbers are coming in. And, you know, I mean, the new numbers will be a bit more, but certainly they're going to offset each other to a degree. So,
Yes.
you know, I think it's worthwhile noting that for sure as we head into that. All right, so does anyone else have any question with the number C, which is the fourth quarter treasury report? Hearing none. Moving on to item D, which is the budget variance report, and I believe again that would be Treasurer Nix.
Thank you, through the chair. I think everything in the report is pretty self-explanatory. As far as that ties into the previous treasury reports, as far as capital revenue was overstated by 1.8 million and offset by capital expenses not realized of 1.7 million. So just as a result of work that was not completed in 2022, and we left the balances in reserves and moved the balance to 2023 as per the report, which I'll go over later. You're starting to see things coming through related to inflation. So there were higher realized costs due to vehicle expenses increase of 21%, shop and fuel expenses 31%, largely offset during a little bit of higher revenue from taxes. Parks and Rec had a successful slate of their programs, which helped, and just overall reduced overhead by about 7%. The key takeaway here is for 2022 before audit, the overall budget variance is 0.5%. Given the financial uncertainty, it shows excellent budget management and fiscal accountability by the team. So I would like to thank all of the managers and directors from Public Works, Recreation, Building Administration, everybody for really doing an excellent job in their forecasting and also execution of their programs.
Thank you. And before I open up the floor to echo our treasurer, I think every manager or director of every department in the township needs a good, well done managing, especially you know, to get us to a very, it's a surplus, it's a small one, but it's still a surplus. And that's by still putting money into reserves. That's you know, doing everything pretty much that we thought we would do aside from that work in progress. So and that's upon realizing vehicle expenses that are 21% higher and fuel costs that are 32% higher. So well done to all of you at the table. You know, let's get it done this year though too. Well done. No, all joking aside, very well done. Okay, so now let's open that up to questions. Does anyone at the table have questions? I have a couple, but I'll wait until everybody else goes. Good. Absolutely, Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. More of a comment is I'm quite impressed with the winter control. I know it's up a little higher, but for what we had to work with in 2022 at the end, with overtime and fuel costs and so on, that really surprised me. I thought it'd be well over 3. So, good job, well done.
Good. Okay. So, I just have a couple of questions, and I do apologize. Like I have 5 pages worth of stuff that I meant to email well in advance, and I'm sorry. So we'll have a couple of questions, and if you don't have the answers, that's fine. But again, going into budget, last year started out at $1 per liter. It hit $2 per liter, and we're back down, depending upon where you are, between $1.42 and $1.30. So, the increase was 31% overall for the year. Just curious what number we're picking for next year's budget. And if you don't have that, that's fine. I can put it in an email and ask it at a later date. And
No, I can answer that question. While there were some one-time items that happened near your end to push that number up, generally across the board, we've kind of compared what the actual cost came in at, and either kept it the same or added a little. So we weren't really comparing to what the budget was, because we were comparing like factors.
right.
So I think from an overall fuel cost, it'll be about flat when you see it on Tuesday next week.
Right. Yeah, so to be the average of whatever fuel that was consumed was purchased at. Yeah. Okay, cool. That makes sense. And I too had winter control on here as well. Refresh my memory, does the 67 to 26 by bylaw go into winter control? Is that just something that we may have done in the past? It just sits in my brain that that's somewhere where we directed it before. Am I correct on that? You remember? Reserve? The surplus. Does the surplus get directed towards the winter maintenance, or is that just something we did in the past?
I think you go and answer that, generally prorated, Yeah, typically, I believe that was either last year or 2 years ago. We had a much higher litter control cost, and I think some of that surplus.
Okay.
We put extra back into the litter control reserves.
Right.
To balance and bring that amount back up, because we had completed it. I believe it was something like 60 or 80,000 that we had completed for 1 year with operations. So we had placed some additional back into that.
Thank you for that. Okay, and so I have like one or two more if everybody will indulge me for a second or two. So curbside waste and recycle. At this point, and I don't want to make any assumptions, but it's over budget by 5.86%. Is that what's the reason for that? I mean, we have a contract, correct? And shouldn't it actually balance itself, or not balance itself, but shouldn't it balance it? Shouldn't it balance out?
So through the chair, this was a transition year to the new contractor, and just during that time frame, I believe that we may have missed a partial month with the original contractor, and that's typically why that's a little bit higher.
Okay.
Yes, it is a contract that we would be pretty much on target.
Good. My next is a comment to the recreation group. I did sort of ask this question earlier today, but compliment on the canteens to Mr. Spencer and his staff. I understand that they're going to be ahead, not behind, that's what this indicates, but there'll be a very small bit ahead. So well done. I know that's always been a bone of contention in the past, and it's certainly something that got looked at again this time. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew well done on that one. And I think that's it for this one for me. think I'll skip that. And so then you need me to go back. So. All right, any further questions on the budget variance report or comments? Anyone? Hearing none, I will thank the treasurer for being ready and willing to answer some very unprepared questions. So, well done. All right, so moving on to Chief Moore, which is the fourth quarter fire report. If you would.
Now we're gonna quick summary.
Sure, if you want to just kind of change one for exactly for the.
So before our meeting started, we had some people here to present some smoke and seal alarms part of Energy Project Zero, which was selected for this year. So we have Ryan Noble representing Enbridge, Jeff Crawford from the Fire Marshal Public Safety Council, Bonnie Payton Kugler from the Southern Food Bank, and our Fire Prevention Officer John Henry. So Enbridge donated 156 combination smoke seal alarms to be distributed to vulnerable populations in Edmonton Cardinal, and we brought Bonnie on board to assist us in that deployment.
That's great. So well done. I thought it was worthwhile noting definitely in the open public session as well. So yeah. Okay, on to the report.
So just some highlights in my report. First off, I'll say that you're going to see some changes in this report. It's going to look a little different than my report in the past. And the idea is just to move away from manual data collection and compilation and use our software that we have. So right off the bat, the first pie chart, that is our Q4 incident by type. We had 62 calls in the fourth quarter of 2022. And those that's the breakdown. The next chart is 2022 as a whole. We ended up with 199 incidences. Under updates and changes to department, I'll just highlight that we completed our tanker shuttle test this fall. We managed to flow 3,000 liters a minute. And that's just every time we've got a little bit higher volume. We started at 1,090 in 2012, and then we got up to 1,885 in 2017. And now we're up to 3,000 liters a minute.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Under training, we had 2 firefighters attend the training session at Elizabethtown, Commity. It was an auto application on hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles. And that initiative was funded by the county training committee. So every fire department got sent two personnel participating. They can bring the information back to their own department. Fire prevention activity. We had crews out on during Fire Prevention Week at Drummond's, Country City Guardrail, and Green interacting with the public, trying to spread the message. Under activity, we had our roads boot camp again this year with 6 participants. Burn permits, 30 permits created, and 1,126 registered burned in the fourth quarter. We've got our graph with our activations and our registered burn map. And at the last page 5 of 8, we'll start with a bit of a summary of our calls for the quarter. And just to familiarize you, just going across the columns, starting from the left. So there's the call time, that's the time that the call actually comes into dispatch and Rockville, the address, the time we arrive on scene, the incident type, the alarm source, where the emergency was reported from, and then the response type of the call on the right. And just one of the reasons I wanted to move away from what we were doing before, and see the difference between an incident type and a response type. So an incident type is what we're being sent to, and a response type is what it actually turned out to be.
Is that it for that one, Chief?
That is correct.
Awesome. Thank you. Great report. Before actually, I'll just let everybody else go ahead first. I have a few comments. So open to the table for discussion, comments. Betsy?
Thank you, the chair. Do the chair to the chief on page 28 of 141. Tanker shuffle, that's a big feather in the cap. To the crew. Does that help our members, taxpayers of Edwardsburg Cardinal on their insurance by any chance? When they have something like this?
Through the chair, that would qualify anybody that is, I believe, 8 kilometers from a fire station and 5 kilometers from a recognized water source. Should receive a same rate that they were in town.
Within the same as if they were within 1,000 feet of a hydrant?
Correct.
Okay.
But that does vary by
Insurance.
insurance company.
Yes.
Some may offer the discount, some.
Yeah. No, I'm glad. I wonder if we should maybe try to promote that or have the taxpayers look into it. Something to look at. And your pies, I love the colors. It's funny because your fourth quarter and the whole year pretty much right down the middle of what we are now. 55% motor vehicle accidents and medical assess. If you look at the fourth quarter and the whole year, we kind of, when we say fire department, you have 22% fires for the year and 15 for the last quarter. So we are changing the way the way the fire departments do business, in other words, So it was really shocking to see that 55% right down almost on the fourth quarter of the year. So of MVA and medical. Just a comment on that. So, thank you. Well done.
Good. Anyone else? No. I just want to make note of two things. One is sort of page 29 and page 30, I guess, if you remember the burn activations, but just to make note that in 2022 there was 1,154 permits issued, and the income from that 11,540. So fantastic work on the burn permit. Question would be, I haven't seen an email yet for renewal, and I think last year I got about 12 of them. So I'm curious if we will see that same email come out or a similar email come out for to everyone that's with that.
Through the chair, yes, I do have to recover from that last year. Yeah, so I would think that with the snow melting that will be.
Okay, good. And the other thing that I wanted to note, and that's going to your second pie chart, which is on page 28, because it's certainly going to be relevant in the next discussion. And that is that the MVA number is 33%. So 1/3, and quite possibly you could add the 21% or some of those 21% possibly in to this as well. Some of a good portion or some portion of those are MTO calls, which we'll go into next. But I think it's worthwhile. Well, the up to 50% of those calls could have some effect from the NTO discussion. Is that, that's not a fair number, but it's a portion of those, right? Yeah, it's definitely a portion. Okay. All right. So does anyone have any further comments or questions regarding the fourth quarter fire report? All right, hearing none, then let's move on to the one that I'm looking forward to, which is the 2022 MTO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So highlights here, in the background, the rate has increased from the MTO up to $510 per vehicle per hour. That came out as taking in the fall of last year up from 509. as council know, when we submit a claim to the MPO, all services performed, supplies used, and the apparatus purpose must be documented in detail. When I was researching MPO calls in preparation for the delegation that we requested out of Roma, I reached out to the Association of Fire Chiefs, who for the past several years have been focusing on MPO calls, and specifically on no service MPO calls. And unfortunately, when I finally got hold of them, they told me they didn't have any application, which was rather surprising because I know they called for data multiple times, so these 2 times that I can remember. But we're just not getting an uptake from the departments in Ontario. So that leads me to believe that this is a big issue and is not gaining momentum across the province that I kind of thought that it was. So I'm suggesting that when we move forward, that we continue to document everything, but we won't invoice the MPO when we're actually going to get paid and get provided service. And then the reason is just staff time, entering and tracking invoices, and spending time on the highway for a person like all that data that isn't going to get us anything anyway. So it's just not efficient, that it's not anything about them. Not saying we're going to give up on the issue, but I don't think that invoicing for every call is going to. I don't think it's all. If we move on to page 2, the summary is pretty self-explanatory. So there were 42 total calls, 10 where we performed services that are considered free and we got paid. So there were 17,235.
Think that. Thank you. Thank you. I think that page sort of speaks for itself. I've got lots of comments on this one, but I want to open this up to the table for discussion. So to the members of the table, I'll take hands if you guys. So Councilor Ward, you want to go first?
Yeah, so through the chair, the rejected calls, I mean, it looks like 2/3, and I just counted them right as we were talking there. So 2/3 of these calls were of the rejected ones, pardon me, were the 416, and I'm wondering why they're rejecting, as far as that stretch with 416 goes, where we have both sides of the highway. So why, I'm not sure. I guess what I'm missing is why would they be rejecting those when we're the only ones that can be there, and obviously we were called to go there. So.
Through the chair, the way the system works is they will only pay us if we perform an approved service. So just because we respond, unless we do extrication, put out a fire, hazardous materials or something like that, then we basically just won't pay. The bottom line is if they don't have an insurance company to bill, they're not going to do it.
It's amazing when you look at it that way.
Just for the sake of new members, what constitutes being dispatched? So you get a call in, but you don't have to do anything. So you didn't just decide to go. Did like somebody phoned? Obviously, you had to dispatch to one of the 400 series highways at somebody's request.
Correct. Yes.
Perfect. So they've been called out. Yep. They get there, and then they have to come back. Yeah. Okay, so are you?
No, it's disappointing when you look at it from that perspective, that we're obviously supposed to be there, and then we're not being credited for that work. So
Yeah, you.
Yeah, we've been fighting for this for this will be number 5 for me, and we don't seem to go ahead. And every time I talk to someone different, I get a different answer. Like when you say we can't perform services, chief, can we take a broom out, sweep the highway for the debris removal? I mean, like a car accident, something like that. Get paid. Can we cut the cable on the battery to disconnect the power to the negative side? Anything, to get paid. I mean, I think we ought to be through that. How, why can't we do that and get paid for it? That's my question. And the 543 is nice, at least getting a little bit more. Not a heck of a lot of equipment. And then it says, when you say upon payment of the MTO, municipality that distributes the funds as appropriate. So we're probably dealing with two. I would say Prescott and North Grenville. Would that be right? Probably 80–90% of if we're going to bump into each other on 401, 416. And if
it happens occasionally, but not very often.
okay, so whoever it does, do we split 50-50 or how's that work when you say municipalities didn't distribute the funds as appropriate? So how's that really work?
So through the chair, if we have a large incident that required multiple tankers or whatever, we can build as many as we need. So it would go to 5 trucks, 4 trucks, everybody would get their piece of pie. If it's just a minor call, they say a limit of 3, then we would probably split that quickly, as depending on the response.
Does that happen very often?
Through the chair,
No. Fine for the 3. I just wish we got more vacuum cables.
I'm sure that's for this one. Further comments, questions?
So if I may, through the chair to respond to that. If our personnel and apparatus are unseen on 400 series highway, and we don't need to expose any of our personnel to the traffic on those 400 series highways, I would find it hard to think that we would want to have our personnel out of the vehicle, go and cut a battery cable that likely doesn't need to be cut, and potentially expose ourselves to an insurance company that says you just cost our driver additional money to get a vehicle fixed that didn't need to be fixed. So I think from a safety aspect, although it is unfortunate in those 400 series highways where with the use of cell phones, somebody sees a vehicle on the side of the road, they drive by, they don't stop to assess what the situation is. They call 911. The details are a vehicle off on the side of the road or in the ditch, and what they are parked on the side of the road, maybe to make a phone call, and when the department responds, they go up and down the 400 series highway as no vehicle, and there is nobody to build. The province only reimburses when, as we've indicated, when they can receive that money from the insurance company, and there really is just a path through. That's just the way that the system is set up.
No.
All right, so and I 100% understand and agree with where that's coming from, but the township's fire department, we all know, and I'm not saying you're saying it's free. It's not free. It comes providing the service, putting those volunteers out there. For that service, it costs us money to put it out. They're being phoned by the province, by that 911 operator to perform a service on behalf of the province. So my problem with that is that, that's the viability of our fire department. It costs money. It's wear and tear on vehicles. It's personnel. You pointed out that the safety of firemen along the highway, 400 series highways is possibly being put at risk, but we're not getting paid for them to go out and do that. And that's a service that we're required to do. I'm not happy. To be honest, I'm not happy about that we're not getting reimbursed for those. I think you do a fantastic job getting the ones reimbursed that you do manage to get. reimbursed, but I struggle that we are required to put out and provide this service, but yet at a cost to our taxpayers. And we just don't get reimbursed by that. And just doing a little bit of thinking this weekend, there are, in the United Counties, there are 9, either, if you count Gananoque, Brockville, and Prescott, they all have small little sections as well. There are 9 of them, 9 of the United Counties that members of the United Counties of the Joint Service, however you want to say that, of the 13 municipalities that actually have 401 in them. My thought is that I know the chiefs have meetings and have discussions. Is this something that has been discussed at those? I mean, there are 9 other chiefs that we can talk to within our own United Counties to see if they're having these issues. And if they aren't documenting them, maybe by documenting them and uniting together and going to our own entity, then we can get somewhere and getting some of these calls, covered. It's expensive to dispatch this, it's expensive to have, and it certainly has an impact on our budget. So I think there was a question sort of in there somewhere, but
through the chair, I can't recall that being discussed at the local level. In some of my more casual conversations with other chiefs, I have asked, is this a priority for the municipality? And I'm not getting. I was saying that I've been speaking with someone, but that doesn't mean that we can't have that opportunity.
so here's a question, and it's not necessarily a serious comment, but what would the response be if, when we were called to be sent out, if we waited until we knew that we were going to get paid before we went out? Are we required to be there within a certain amount of time? Or are we, if we just didn't respond to the ones that we weren't going to get paid for, if we knew we were going to get paid for the other ones before we dispatched? I know that we can't do that, but, are we under a law? Are we under a rule, a law that states that we have to dispatch?
I believe that we've devoted this, but I believe we could down the road saying we're not going to respond to volunteers. We've got to happen.
I'm not suggesting necessarily that we do that. I just struggle with 2/3 of our calls when we have done our part, don't get paid. And I understand what the CAO said, that if the province can build the insurance, that the insurance will pay that cost from that person, and that's fine, but that certainly doesn't help us in 2/3 of our calls. And we do, the fire department, all the volunteers, the viability of that service, certainly, they leave their workplaces, they go out and leave families, whatever, and go out and respond, and yet the service doesn't get paid for it. I really struggle with this one. So I know that the report suggests that we don't keep this. I'd really like to I know it's a bit of work, chief, to keep this, and if you'd indulge me a little bit and allow me to have the conversations with other mayors and see if there's somewhere we can get on this. One thing I'd really like, it's not an enormous amount of money, but it is something that I'd like to push for, because I don't think that we're being treated fairly.
So I don't disagree, and I believe we are probably doing something. With the challenge with invoicing all calls is, you'll see that there's 42 calls there. Only 10 of it we have a chance to get paid for, but we have to monitor all those 42 incidences in a database. So if they ask a question and look for information, we have to figure out whether that's one that we're going to get paid for or we're not getting paid for. So it's a lot more than just sticking in the system that they're getting, but all those calls have to be monitored.
You look like you have something to say.
Yeah. We've debated this over 30 years. Councils have went over this. And The more I've thought about this over the last while, I looked at this tape the last time. Photocopies from every year for the last 15 years about since 4 our 911. Good Samaritans thinks they're helping everybody by picking up the phone and calling them if they see something in there. I think we've been going about it the wrong way, trying to get money by going on all these calls. The ones that we know we're getting paid for, that's not a problem. We're gonna pay us for that. I think what AMO and counties and stuff should be doing is going after the province. And then the province goes after the insurance companies. For every fire department, you gotta respond to 400 hydrants. We should be getting a standby. Okay. We got 10 vehicles that's gonna respond to 401 or 416. They should be paying as a set rate every year. The 10 vehicles, maybe it's $1,000 a vehicle a year, you give them a standby pay. Regardless, where we ever go out the door, we're making the vehicles available to respond to these calls. It's saving the insurance companies, as you said, if nobody responded to any calls. And people died because we didn't get there to extricate for the car, or you got a tractor fire right before the load caught fire and $100,000 worth of material burned from the back end. We're doing that, we're saving them a lot of money by we go there, okay, maybe nothing happened, but we responded, could have been. But I think maybe we've been looking at it the wrong way. Maybe we should be going after them for just a flat rate standby on top of what, if it's a call we have to work out, okay, but if we never worked for 3 months, the equipment was all there, the people were there ready to do the job. Maybe we get better response when we look at a standby rate. Like if you're a security company or something, and people want security, and they put 10 people on standby, they get a flat rate whether they ever use it or not. So when people's on standby, you get paid. Maybe we get a better response. We could close that door, open another door over here, try going in the back door instead of the front.
It's interesting. That's not one that I had on my list. That's we do things slightly different, but I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think another reason why we need to, and I know it's a pain to document and to keep documenting that, but I mean, it justifies that what that cost would be or what that fee would actually be. It gives us the data backdrop for that. I mean, what we deserve to be paid. So,
and through the chair, there's good examples. I mean, I haven't had a car accident in 25 years, and I've been paying my insurance every year. I have never used unemployment, and I've paid that for the last 32 years as well. So, there is fees that people pay that we don't like to pay, which they don't like to pay again. But we're sending trucks out there. We deserve it.
yes. Sorry, this turned into something that was.
Through the chair, I don't think the discussion really is about us not tracking them. It's they're not tracking them through the provincial database. So we're certainly going to know the Excel spreadsheet that's on page 36 doesn't come from the database itself. It comes from the calculation. We know that we had 3 apparatus respond. We were there for an hour. Right, that value is calculated, and that would continue. It just wouldn't be the actual physical submission into that database, answering those questions back and forth and taking that tracking aspect. But as far as logging in and having that readily available for production to submit to the province, it would still be available.
And so we, right, and so we would be able to go back to the earlier report, the one that's on page 34, and every one of those calls then that it has the date attached to it, would be found in that report and to where they were dispatched then. But we just wouldn't send the bill because we know that it's not going to be covered.
We would not submit through the database knowing that is. Knowing that that is deemed from the province to be a no service. That's.
Sorry. Yes.
To the chair, to the service, if we send them a station, it doesn't. The worker.
That's the argument, right? Like it is, and then, so for those who couldn't hear what Councilor Smale said, it still is a service. The minute they leave or minute they respond to the alarm, right, it's still a service, so.
Through the chair, it's not by definition from the province. Services eligible for payment include the electrification, fire extinguishment, and spill containment.
Yeah.
It's just the reality is that we, in all fairness, from my time, we've been submitting and monitoring and tracking through the database for 10 years. And it just isn't efficient. We can track the same information much quicker. And have it readily available. You know, we're not saying.
If I want to take that to a meeting, it'll be there for me.
It will be there and ready and that's certainly possible.
Well, so would. Maybe this is to chief, we'll still see the exact same report then that we see on page 36. Right, and so you'll just say which ones were submitted, not rejected, or. Like, is right now the report says rejected versus approved. So when I go in to make the argument about this and plop it on a desk, it, you know, if every one is approved after that, it just. Like, I still want to see the ones that, we will still see the ones that wouldn't be approved. You just won't say rejected, right, not qualified or something, okay. Sure.
Suffice it to say, you can basically assume you know which ones would not be approved when you submit them. If you were to submit them. Okay, that's what.
All right, before we move on, does anyone else have any final? Good, thank you. Well, way longer than normal. Okay, all right, so that does it for the MTO report and for fourth quarter facility stats report update, and that would be Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just give a brief outline of the report for our new members of council. So quarterly, we give a report of the usage at some of our facilities. And it's broken down in months. So page 2 of the report basically breaks down the South Center, the downtown meeting room, which is at the Ingredient Arena, the Spencer Arena, hall upstairs, the town hall, and the council part of it, the town hall chambers. So it's based on for those calls based on 12 hours a day over the course of the month, and basically it shows the hours and then the percentage of the actual amounts. I will say for the new members also with the Ingredient Center, Monday to Friday we offer an outdoor skating in the mornings, which is very popular. Between 7:45 and 9:30. We don't kick them off if they're still out there. And the people utilize the walking track as well. We offer free coffee, and it's a bit of a social gathering for a lot of the seniors. Monday to Friday during the day, so it's regulars, but then there are also a lot of new people that come in periodically as well. Just also indicating that we offer free public skating at both rinks. Friday night it's at Cardinal at 6 o'clock, and Sundays it's in Special at 2 o'clock. And again, those numbers are very well received. There's good turnout at both of those locations for the season. We offer out skating in Sunville a couple times a week, and we also offer out skating at open units. The third page of the report is just the ice rentals, and the ice rentals are based on 15 hours a day. And paying the 12 hours book at the percentage. Any questions that we have to answer?
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Open the floor to questions. Who has questions of Mr. Spencer? Go ahead. Here.
I do not know if there are questions.
Or sorry, Councilor Ward.
So if I look at, say, this quarter, it looks like roughly like 650 maybe or so average hours per month of ice rental. How much of that's attributed to Prescott, to teams having to do their place right now? Roughly.
Through the chair, across the word. So the way the hockey program operates, Southern Minor Hockey is made up of kids that live in our township, the town of Prescott, and the township of Augusta. The region of teams, I would say it's about a quarter of the kids would be from our township, the others from various townships, not just Prescott. But Augusta, they could be from Temple, Westport, and around. So the fact that the Prescott link is closed right now doesn't really show the numbers because cell phones been used the ice right we can get the ice out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was trying to figure out how many hours of those 600 and whatever hours. Once it opens, won't be there. I guess is the question, but it sounds like it's a hard question to ask.
In speaking through the chair to Council Ward, and speaking with a number of the associations, they will work Prescott. As I indicated before, it's not that expensive arrangement. The actual quality of the ice is greater than that, but it's the building that's aging. And I don't mean from the structural point of view, I just mean the size of the change rooms and the area of the number of change rooms. Cardinal arrangement, we have 6 change rooms, and Spencer we have 4, and we stretch that sometimes to 5. A lot of the hockey programs and athletic arenas have a lot of girls now that play. And at one time, the minor hockey groups would 15 minutes, the first 15 minutes, the boys would change, they would go to the change room, the girls were going. And then that changed about 4 or 5 years ago, where they were wanting to have their own change rooms, and we tried to accommodate that, and then we can. In Cardinal, it's not a problem because of the 6 change rooms, but it's not an issue. I do know Prescott has 6 change rooms. They're trying to construct number.
Thank you.
Good. Further questions? Anyone else? Questions? I have one. Maybe one, Mr. Spencer, just can you bear with me for 1 second? So going back to the book, like the bookings for Spencerville, because we are talking about Spencerville. So 65% in October, 62% in November, and 72% of the bookable hours were booked. So not high numbers by any stretch, right? Like there's still available ice.
Yes, but just those 15 hours a day include hours during the day. So the prime time ice is basically from 4 o'clock or from 4:30 till 10:30 to 11 o'clock, and that's primarily what those who choose. But the total hours of what is available includes the hours during the day, but that doesn't get read a whole lot, obviously, because it's during the day, Monday to Friday. Prime time ice, I would say at Spencerville, we're probably close to 95% booked on our prime time ice.
On prime time ice.
In Spencerville, Mike?
That's correct. Yeah. We have 1 hour on Friday nights that's open from 10 to 11, and then we have 1 hour on Saturday nights from 10 to 11 that's open, and on Sunday we have 2 hours. So that's pretty much it. The rest of the weekend is when it's still either 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
Is it? You good?
Well, now that we're on it, we also gonna have it. But we have 95% of our untimed unit now, right, dispensable.
That is correct.
In 218, what do we have off the top of your head, or could you? Just because of when the 3 rinks were open, the Leo and our. Would it be?
Oh, we weren't at 95%. We were, I don't have the figures. in front of me, but I'd say we were probably
60?
75% booked. Oh, if I can think back that far.
Okay.
Of prime time?
Of prime time.
Yeah, well, that's good.
So like less than around 50% of book.
But also, council has to look at the actual numbers of the kids that are playing hockey now, and numbers have reduced a lot since dramatically. And so we're self-number potentially might even looking for 50 hours a week between the rinks. They're looking for 35, maybe 40. Because their numbers aren't what they used to be. And that's not just self-number, it's all level of hockey, except the AAA hockey. You'll always have those numbers the same. It's the grassroots programs that are affected.
Thank you, yes.
Well, I just think that it's worthwhile pointing out, and I'm going back a long way in it, but it's the budget variance report. You know, and looking at the costs and the revenues. So the costs are coming in under budget by 2% for Spencerville Arena, and the revenues are actually up 7.5%. From what the budgeted amount was, and that's at 65%, 62 and 72% capacity. So from my perspective, that's exceeding budget, which means that it's doing really well. Unless I'm reading that wrong, it appears that it's doing really well.
Let's say we're reading it wrong, but we also have to look back in January of 2022, that arena didn't operate. It was shut down, so there were the expenses of that, but the actual operating and there was no operating, or there was no revenue. For the month of January at both of us. But
So they were open in February. So there's a month.
We did yeah, and then the Spencerville this year we didn't open until October the 1st. We're typically we were open the 20th. We opened in October the 1st this year. We extended that a couple of extra days again, just because the need wasn't there.
Sure, no, sure. But I'm just looking at those again, I guess the numbers lie a little bit here, but I'm just in looking at the numbers, it's what I had when I went through my notes. So even at 65, 62 and 72, it's exceeding the budget expectation. But thanks for the January part, because it doesn't show that in there, but it still exceeded what the budgeted number was, I guess, even being closed. So okay, and I think that was it for me. That's all that I had in that. So anyone further questions of Mr. Spencer? Good, awesome. Thanks, Mike.
No problem. Thank you.
Or Mr. Spencer, my apologies. We are on to, I believe, Mr. Shaw and.
No, there's one more for me.
Oh, there is one. Oh, maintenance report. My apologies. Sorry, I forgot that. The 2022 fourth quarter facility maintenance report. That's all I think.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is a quarterly report for October, November, December. For the new members, we do have a citywide program as these utilize. These work orders and service requests are some stuff that over and above what my staff is doing on a normal daily basis. So I break it down, the WOL, the work order, that typically is a contractor coming in to perform the work most times. So just breaking it down, giving you the work order number and just a brief description of what was done. So for example, ingredient center, work order number 3157 was the yearly fire alarm testing by Fairway. So they came in and do the fire alarm test system, give us the report, we put it in the citywide copies there. And this is for both arenas, the town hall, Johnstown Hall and the, Spencerville and the Cardinal Library. During the summer, we'll add the areas to this report and talk about, if there's anything that needs to be done at the approval and what have you, but during this quarterly report, it was just those items that are listed. The service request on page 2 basically just breaks it down. I've indicated, I've given you the names of the facilities that we need those various items for, and it's just abbreviation with the letters, and it's just small items and different things at the libraries that are requested through the operators of those facilities, and it's my staff that performs those duties throughout the day, throughout the months. That's it.
Good, thank you. Questions to the facilities manager for the maintenance report? Anyone? No? Again, this, and I'm just going back again, I just looked at my notes and it's one of the things that I missed, and it was just, and I would normally send it in an email, and if you don't have the answer, that's completely fine. I'll send it in an email. But it goes back to the budget, and it goes back to page 23 of 141, under revenues, department revenues, and under parks. And we had nothing budgeted, and we realized 200 or 22,500. Why? Do you know of? Is that something I have to email? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I apologize.
No problem. I believe that is the money that we received from Giant Tiger for the play structure that was purchased. They wanted to get it off their books for 2022, so we received the money, and you'll see that as an expense on this year's budget that was away.
Okay.
We haven't paid for the play structure yet. It's on order to be, as I indicated, due to come in the spring. So I believe with that what that complete figure is.
It's
close.
That's a fantastic answer. I was trying to figure out how we made $22,500 in parks last year, and I was like, woohoo, great, let's see if we can do that again this year, because that was fantastic. So thanks for being able to answer that. That's good. Further questions for Mr. Spencer? No? Are you staying? Yep, you're staying? Okay. I wanted to compliment, but I'll hold it till the end. So fourth quarter operations report, and I believe now that'll be Mr. Shaw. And
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under section 1, public works, the maintenance grading on granular surface and hardtop patching is ongoing. Under winter control, 19 winter events in the quarter, one significant weather event declared by the township December 23rd to 25th inclusive. For tenders, the County Road 2 infrastructure and road replacement tender was issued by Jewel Engineering on December 15th and closed February 7th. It's currently under review by Jewel, and a report of recommendations to follow in March. Miscellaneous emergency cross culvert installed on Connell Road, at 900 millimeter by 18-meter long by staff. Public Works crew completed women's training. Rob Akins was hired as a part-time employee for the snow walk plow and other services. 93 service requests and 46 work orders completed in the quarter. Road crush and tree removal. Under waste disposal, there was 446 vehicles attended over 13 Saturdays in the quarter for total punch card sales of $5,687.50. Under section 3, environmental services, the fourth quarter water treatment flow summary, basically very similar to 2021. Fourth quarter water treatment operation parameters, all operation parameters with the one. The fourth quarter water treatment plant, we go with testing, again, all complete. And the fourth quarter summary report for the industrial park, again, all complete. The fourth quarter summary report for the industrial park has the Brisbane residuals, the regional residuals, and pressure, well within parameters.
For a quarter report for Windmill Pumping Station, comparable to 2021, in the same year. Quarter report for Spencerville Lagoons, up slightly from same period in 2021, but just. Fourth quarter report for Cardinal wastewater treatment plant, up slightly from 2021 forward. The parameters for removals, well within objectives and compliance. And again, for the BOD suspended solid removals of phosphorus, ammonia removal, slightly better. Some questions?
Let's see. Thank you for the report, the summary of the report, Mr. Shaw. Opening the floor to questions from the committee. Does anyone have questions of Mr. Shaw? The Director of Operations. So. I'll get there. I'll get there, I promise. Okay, if there are none, I might have just one or two just for clarification. For anyone reading the reports, number on page 444, there's a very high number on the max flow for December, 1162. That's the main break. Is that what that would be attributed to?
Through the chair, yes, would be the water main break.
That'd be the main break, and it made up for the anomaly in that number, right? Okay, and on page 46, a large reduction from October to December for the pumping station. So the minimum flow goes from 14 to 11 to 976. What do we attribute that? I mean, I know what I would attribute it to, but
Through the chair, that's the minimum daily flow average in meters cubed, so that's just depending on the demand that we do last.
okay, so it's a lot, right? It's a third less in December than October. That's pretty normal though. That's pretty standard. Yeah. Okay. And
Sorry, through the chair, if you look at the average daily flows.
yeah.
Now, the average daily flows, you can see they're a little more similar, and then actually in 2021, the numbers were roughly the same, isn't that for October 1416 to 2021, for November 1577, which is almost bang on, and then for December, they had 1446 for the daily flow. So the numbers aren't off that much from last year.
Okay, and page 47, I just had an increase again due to the line break. So that'd be under the 2877 on page 47. So again, the December total flow number, which was 2877. Again, that one attributed to the line break again.
Through the chair, that's the wastewater plant. So that would be when we had significant snow melt. So we had a higher flow for a period of time.
Okay, and we were able to handle it all.
Yeah.
Good. And I think, yeah, I think that's it. That's good. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Roman and Ms. Shaw. So we are on to the work in progress report, which is item J. Is that Treasurer Nicholson or to CAO?
No, I
Okay.
sure. Normally this report is an action item or a discussion item. For information but this year there was already enough in the work in progress account to cover everything. The only exception is just with that Spencerville and drainage project. Because we haven't actually received the funds. I don't think it should be an amount that goes into it because we haven't spent anything, but we also haven't received anything. So the auditors may feel differently. and may request me to do so with entries, and if that is the case, then I'll bring it forward again as an action item.
Yep, that's suffice for moi. Questions or comments on the work in progress report? Anyone? Moving on then to item K, which is 2023 amendments to the building permit fee schedule. And to the CEO, who will be speaking to this one?
Mr. Chair, I'll have the chief building official lead the discussion.
Thank you very much. So to the CEO.
Through the chair, this staff report that you have coming is actually a resubmission of a previous staff report that we probably issued last September. It came back for more, I think more further discussion. It's actually in three parts: small buildings, building code amendments for fees, and item on fence permits. I'm not sure if all the new councilors are aware of that, but back in April of last year, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing issued an order amending a minimum area of buildings that didn't require a building permit, and went from 10 square meters to 15 square meters. Basically, those buildings would be exempt from taking a building permit if they are for the storage purpose. So we have other than storage. There is a problem with that. They're right from not doing a review of a building of that size, because there's requirements within the building code that requires those buildings a certain distance from septic systems and well. There's also requirements that are looking by law that makes them within a certain distance of lot line and primary buildings, and also some of those structures that they're located along the right-of-way, they would require conservation authority approval. So in lieu of the building permit, I'm suggesting that we have some type of compliance certificate, which would require the individual who's installing one of these buildings to have it reviewed by the building department to ensure that it complies with all the other regulations that we have to work with in order to install the building. So that's basically very briefly why we're I'm suggesting that we go along this type of zoning. The second part of the amendments to the fee schedule. Initially, it started there with looking at amendments to the fee schedule for industrial and commercial buildings. Every at the moment, when we charge for square footage, we're barely making a significant amount of. We're barely making enough money to be actually pay for the processing of the building permit. So I'm suggesting that we increase the fees from 40 cents per square foot to 80 cents per square foot. Now that works for a lot of the typical buildings that are being built these days, because most of the larger industrial buildings in our park and that are constructed, but because now we're looking at because it's very I'm also looking at adding or increasing the building fee. We have that is submitted, and it's a fee that's not refundable. It covers the cost of the review of the building permit application. I'm suggesting that we increase that by, basically $20 to be $115. I'm also looking at, increasing the square footage for residential buildings, an additional 5 cents a square foot. Now, it doesn't, it's not significant, but we haven't had a building, increase in building permit since 2012. So, really compensated and now that we have a additional cost to work in the building building. The final item is fence permit. We have to basically create some new requirements for residential fences. Again, there's an important issue here. We never really get involved in the after the red bill. It's usually a dispute between either the height of the fence location of the fence or the other part of the nation that is leading with the design of the fence. The issue of building permits, we can actually have that discussion with the homeowner who wants to put up this fence, make sure that they are aware of like certain requirements. And again, it's modest, it's only $15, and it would be part of the basic unit of the building. Any questions?
Good. I think there may be a couple. Open it up to committee for comments and questions. Do you want to
Does
go?
nobody ever want to stop? Yeah, I appreciate all the work went into the fee schedule here. One thing that I've been, talking to various, my wife and family about is, the building permit itself, the fee for a building permit, and I just did quick math on a rough house at about say $2,500 to $3,000 for a house. Does that fee get in the way of somebody who wants to build a residence? In other words, if that was something where we said, as just hypothetically, we'll cover the building permit fee if you're built in 2023, for instance, or something like that. Would that be a motivator, or is that not a motivator? You think in terms of building anyway?
In all the years that I've been in the building permit, I've never had a person complain about the cost of the building permit. It's just it's part of the cost of the building house or agree.
And you hear various things about Toronto and the big cities charging lots more than this, for instance, for sure. And this doesn't seem like something that would be in the way of somebody moving in. This would be a motivator to keep going. But
the building code act permit the building department or the council. With established fees that would cover the cost of one of the department. So we have a small budget in this city, so we can afford to have permits that are much less than fee in permit fees.
thank you.
Anyone else?
Who the chair building is the chief building inspector. Where are we in line with other townships close by Augusta,
I did comparison.
South Dundas?
I did comparison with municipalities around us, and we're a big scale. There's actually municipalities that are charging less for building permit fees, and then there are others that are a little slightly higher than them.
And 15. I have a real problem with that on that 15 square meter, 161 square feet. I think we had that discussion last September on it too, that I could probably go along maybe with some kind of bylaw. You don't have to, but not a building permit, of some sort, or some kind of certificate where we would go maybe make sure it's not near a septic or a lot line of septic. But I'm not going to get into charging people for these little sheds that come from the Amish. I said I just don't feel that we should be charging a building permit on these 161 square feet buildings like the Amish buildings. I could go along with some kind of permit where we maybe go and investigate to make sure that it's not near a septic or a lot line, but not a charge. I know we have a building, building inspectors, but I just feel that I'm totally against that. Now, is other townships doing this too? Do you know? Are you aware in our area?
I'm not aware of any other problem.
The rest I can live with it. The 40 to 80 is a little, I don't know, again, industrial, your business, so I find that I find we don't get enough money out of taxes out of industrial myself, so maybe this is a way to get a little bit down. So that's all I have to say.
Wait, Councillor Smith.
Through the chair to the building inspector, $115 you want to have a permit for a fence. Is that ever anywhere else? Have you ever heard of that? Like in other townships? The reason I'm asking is because if you put up a fence, I know I put one up and it cost me close to $6,000. And I definitely, it's a nice fence, but all I'm saying is, if it's never been there before, how come you're starting out so high at $115? Like, why do we have to be so high?
It doesn't have to be $115. We've established the minimum permit fee.
Oh,
At $115. If it's not fulfilled with that too high, well, certainly we can make it lower.
okay, thank you.
We go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to clarify that the last claims that the building fees were increased in hospital in 2020. In fact, in January 2021, that instituted that base fee for $95.
Did it just back to you? Did it go from 90 to 95? You remember off? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I knew that we've done it more. We've done it more than once on this term, like this council. So.
Right,
For the last time, excuse me.
I have to check back.
Yeah.
That was it.
Wait.
It was,
I don't know. It was 20. I think we did it twice. Or well, we did it twice. Okay, so just for my own clarity on this one. So if a major corporation came in, like, let's say, let's not use a name, just say that they build a 640,000 square foot warehouse. And their building, where our suggestion is that their per square foot cost would go from 40 cents per square foot to 80 cents per square foot, and that they would now be paying $512,000 in fees just to build in our township.
Through the chair, a situation like that amount of money would be ridiculous. And in the past, what's happened is councils have negotiated a fee with the developer. Certainly I understand where you're going. If you did a large structure like that, it's very expensive.
Just in my mind, just having that as part of a bylaw as a prospective fee would turn me away. You know, it's a big number if I was looking at coming here just in fees to build a building that's going to, you know, provide jobs and generate taxations for a corporation. Paying $500,000 in fee just so that I could be there. It seems, you know, like a lot.
Council does have that right. With just a permit.
Yeah, I'm just.
And I think they just give an example. There was a resolution that the company that you would think on that building was one of the next thing you would get for
Yeah, and my comment is that I just certainly wouldn't want. I certainly wouldn't want to scare away, maybe not somebody as big as them, but you know, somebody that's going to build 100,000 square feet or something like that, just by seeing that number that's coming along with it and saying, oh, I can build somewhere else for half the cost. You know, I just
good argument and that would be interested in investigating how to deal with it.
yeah, and did you want it at some point or am I speaking?
This council's got to remember that the building department has to fund itself. So your fees have to bring in, the last council that renegotiated the cost for the major building coming in and didn't charge for it. The council that we sat on had a deficit in a building permit fee because of all the hours spent inspecting that building and didn't get paid to do it. And I think you got to look at what all the other municipalities, the rates are.
But the argument back to that would be look at the revenue and look at the fees that's generated since it was built.
Yeah, but they weren't going anyplace else.
But they're here now, and that's easy to say that they're here now. But what I certainly don't want to do is I don't want to you know, scare the next
I
one.
think we just got to face yourself without other municipalities what they're charging.
Yeah,
If everybody's charging 40 cents a square foot or 80 cents a square foot, moving next door and paying 80 cents isn't going to change the mind.
I have a question.
Thanks, Mr. Hunter. That's kind of where I was going in that, you know, it would be nice to see a comparative of these fees versus what other close by areas are charging as well, just to see how they compare to that, because yeah, I don't build, so I don't know what the places charge. That's all. So
I certainly would support, you know, a comparison of neighboring municipalities as well. To the CAO did, and Mr. Hunter brought up a point. Growth traditionally growth pays or is intended to pay for growth. Bill 23 not change that ultimately. I mean, you know, reducing building fees, reducing, you know, the ability to put those things on. I mean, does that not exactly what it did? It actually then states basically that we shouldn't be kind of doing this, and that you know that the entire area has a responsibility to pitch in, like it gets away a little bit from. That's the way that I interpret Bill 23, and maybe I'm wrong on that a little, but.
With respect to Bill 23, it really doesn't encompass the Building Code Act. It certainly does encompass with respect to planning in that area with respect to limitations that way, but I do believe that the Building Code Act is not one of the acts that is encompassed by Bill 23.
So Building Code Act specifically states that growth has to pay for growth.
The building code is basically indicates that it's a user-based system, so the fees generated from building permits. It basically the revenue is to cover the expenses with respect to the inspection. And that department operating. So very an exaggerated example is the water systems. But taxation is not actually covering the water system, right? It has to be sort of a self-sustained users department.
So in the instance that, let's say, there's a building built at 40 cents per square, and we come up short, then that's on us, or that's on the ratepayer to make up the difference. If we charge 80 cents and there's a surplus in that fee schedule, does that fee get refunded to the builder? Or does it go in the revenue?
So typically, in the earlier report, we would have seen a building reserve. So basically, in cases where there may be a revenue, it would go into that reserve fund.
So,
but as indicated earlier, a couple of years that was actually a negative reserve balance.
So, and that's where I was about to go with it. So then it goes into that reserve, and then in a negative year like this, when you draw upon that reserve to offset the cost to the department.
Correct. So it sort of used to balance it those years, so that you're not sort of continually increasing rates or decreasing, but you're able to achieve a balance.
Yeah, okay. I know there's a recommendation here. I'm thinking of what Councilor Ward said about having a little bit more information. Is there an urgency to move this item along, or is this something that we can see again and have another discussion about?
If the committee is not comfortable with moving to the public meeting stage, we can return with some additional information next month, and then we'll do the schedule of public meeting. One thing that I would recommend though is look to have if there are going to be any changes to make sure that they're implemented, we want to make portion of that building season.
Right.
And
So
it is a little bit more of a daily time for the builders right now. It makes it a little easier to have them attend public meeting to hear the feedback as opposed to once they get into their busier season as well.
okay. Well, there's three main things that I struggle with in the report. One is 40 cents to 80 cents seems like an enormous jump and detrimental to growth to me. Two is more maybe just a question or maybe a point of clarity, or maybe something that just got missed. But 8B, the barns and machine sheds was at $95. Is that an oversight, or did it mean to stay at 95 or go to $95? Everything else on the sheet is at 115 and it's at 95. So that was just a question for there. And the last one that I want to go back to what Deputy Mayor said before, and I know we had this discussion with the last council, not this council, but when MMAH allowed no building permits to go from 10 square meters to 15 square meters. I know we had a discussion about that, and I don't mind that change. And I certainly understand where you're coming from. The anchoring down of the sheds and the location of them could certainly become an issue. We could receive some complaints. So I think in my mind, the way that we sort of beat it around pretty good last time, but I struggle with going backwards. So in my mind, the only permit would be required would be from 10 square meters to the 15 square meters. And it would be just more of a location permit. And I don't know, you know, how the group around the table feels about it, but I certainly don't think that putting a permit on my lawn tractor shed that was 6 meters, you know, before this now has a fee of 115 meters to have somebody come out and have a look at it and make sure. So I like the deputy mayor, I struggle with that. I don't disagree though, from 10 to 15, that's a bit much bigger building. Some of the proximities to, like you said, to water course, to property lines, to septic systems, to pools, could certainly be an issue. So I don't have necessarily an issue for the 10 to 15 for location permit. But again, at the, you know, I'm not sure exactly what fee I would attach to that. So for me, those are the issues with this that I so I just think the 40 to 80 is an enormous jump per square foot, and I really wouldn't want to. I really don't. I mean, I want to see more commercial and more industrial development, especially if we're pushing forward, trying to, you know, create an area which we could draw in, you know, some potential new growth, and it may not happen in this term, but it may be relevant for this term, but I don't want that number to give another reason to turn away from us. So I'd prefer to see, personally, I'd rather see that number a little bit lower. So need some help around the table to get there. So
What? I guess where do we go from here, right?
well, I mean, I think if we're going to give suggestions as to what we'd like to see, now's the time, correct? That's what you're suggesting. We need to give them a little bit of direction to what we want them to bring back to us, so we're not doing this twice more.
Through the chair, that's correct. So, if reading committee correct, certainly one of the items that you want is just a little bit more detail with respect to the comparison with neighboring municipalities with respect to those fees. Confirm whether the deed was just and that's I suspect on quick glance that 95 was supposed to be 115. I would say I think the comparison will answer that question with respect to the 40 to 80 cents as well. And I believe the other item was if the 10 besides it just only being applicable for the compliance certificate for structures between 10 square meters and 15 square meters. Anything 10 square meters or less would not require.
Not for me.
Is one of the items that the committee is going to discuss and provide some direction with respect to that.
Sounds good.
Well, I think that's what we're expecting now, right? Yeah.
If
I think I've made my feelings pretty clear, so on how I feel about that. I think the deputy mayor's made his kind of clear on below 10 meters. Let's not take it above 10 meters yet, but below 10 meters, no permit fee, no required nodding of heads or shaking of heads. It doesn't matter one way or the other, but I need one of two. So we can get direction. Yes.
And just one comment for the table in consideration. Should complaints arise on the proximity of a shed, whether 8 square meters or not between neighbors, can exhaust a fair bit of time with respect to building and bylaw, get that into compliance. So that is always something else to consider, that upfront 115 is relatively low compared to the time and effort of some of those.
So can I turn that back around then and say, I get that a complaint can be onerous, but I would hate to see that 1,100 or 1,200 potential house owners, because there was one complaint, have to suffer because of that. So how many complaints do we have?
Through the chair, that is just an item for consideration.
Okay. I
I
thought you were suggesting we had a lot of complaints.
Not debating it, what I would like to tell you from planning is when you're making that decision.
Yeah, all right, fair, because I mean, I've yet to have a complaint, so as a member of council in I think this is my 5th year, so so we definitely need a nodding ahead so that we can give the CBO through the CAO so a little bit of direction on how to proceed with this, right? So when it comes to is it fair to go under 10 and then try to go from 10 to 15? You think that's a good approach, or do you think I should just go from 15 down first?
I would suggest that you can bring that into 10 to 15 and below 10.
Okay, so nodding of heads to leave 10 to 15 alone, no permit required. Is that good? Yeah, okay, so I think direction then is to leave below 10 alone.
Okay, I thought you just indicated 10 to 15, you know, to leave it alone. So you did say below.
Did I say? I meant to say below 10, sorry.
So
Did I say something different than that?
10
Did I really? I didn't mean 10 to 15. I didn't mean 10 to 15. Sorry. Thank you for that. I thought I said 10 below. So read on my notes. So below 10 square meters, 10 square meters and below. Okay, no permit, no fee, no location permit. Basically the same as it is right now. It doesn't change, right? Okay, so nodding heads on that one. Yes. Okay, so I think that direction is clear. Now 10, I want to know how the committee feels, and you may have to do more than nodding of heads on this one. You may have to actually speak to it a tiny little bit, because if there isn't a nodding of heads, there's going to be either a zoning permit or a location permit that needs to be issued if that is what comes out of it, and then we have to decide if there's going to be a fee attached to that and what that fee would be. So I'm just going to go side to side on that one. So I know that committee members don't vote on this, but I would like their input still on it as well. So I'll start Karen with you if that's okay.
Personally, I really don't think that it's necessary.
Okay, Councilor Smith.
I think it's necessary it should be like in the zoning.
Okay, and with a fee attached or without a fee attached?
With a fee attached.
With a fee?
With no fee.
With no fee, okay, and that's you're in agreement with that, or what's agreement with that? No fee, but you think a location permit or a zoning permit is okay?
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be the one that said that, so yeah, that's what I meant.
Okay, and so
You stay out of the building. Then you don't have to put a fee with it, you just don't want it, the location for any zoning. The zoning act or something, so you don't. Put it under the building. Then the inspectors have to work, then there definitely have to be a fee on it.
so you're saying no permit then?
No, not a permit, but sometimes the location or something.
So not a building permit, but a location permit. Would that be covered under the zoning act?
So
Property standard.
it is the sense.
I understand the suggestion.
And I could be off on this, so I apologize if I am. The sense that I'm getting is that there's we want to know that the shed is installed to meet zoning for those between 10 and 15. We're looking for some type of permit or at least an inspection that would confirm that it is meeting the requirements with no fee. So-
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of the location of it that I'm. Like I know for me speaking, and I have to speak on this as well. Like a location, because the idea of needing a permit in the first place was presented to us. Wasn't for necessarily usages, it was for locations to lot lines, to septic beds. To things like that, and to make sure that it was anchored appropriately. So for me to agree to that, I don't care if there's a fee to apply to it or not. I mean, if they have to go out to make sure the anchors are put in properly, maybe there should be a nominal fee attached to that and to the location permitting of it as well. But if it's allowed under the building code without a zoning permit, then I don't think that it should be required to have a building or a zoning permit. It would be, in my opinion, it would be a location only permit.
Sure, I guess whether it's, whether it's 9 square meters or 11 square meters, it still has to be a required distance from the property line.
That's right.
So you're saying no permit for 9 square meters. But you have a permit for 11 square meters and follow up to ensure that it's meeting at no charge. My sense is that what you're realizing is that you prefer not to have a permit for bigger. And if you're 15 square meters under.
Well, I mean, with the way that you just described it, from 9 meters to 11 meters, yes, but in the past, nobody's needed a permit from 10 meters and below. So why would we put more restriction? I'm not a restrictive guy. I don't believe in more restrictions for folks. So I don't think that adding a fee to it and making them, comply or move a shed that's been in a place, never been an issue before, never had complaints, is somewhere I'm willing to go. So they're trying to satisfy everyone by saying that status quo before MMAH increased the size to 15 square meters would stay the same. Anything from status quo to the 15 square meters now requires a permit. It's a larger building. And if we're saying no permit from 15 down, then so be it. But I need some help around here at the table or we're not going to get anywhere. So there's a lot of blank stares. Yes.
Maybe I would suggest to leave that to staff. We will come back with the concept for discussion.
Thanks for bailing me out. I appreciate it.
No chair.
So we will see that at the next. It'll be back to this.
We will look to return to the next administration and operation.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. And I look forward to the CBO's changes. I know you've heard the discussion around here. And, I think 99% of it's good. So
Number 4.
sorry, which one?
Number 4 going from 40 to
They're gonna review that. I think you heard that well and clear, right? From the 40 to the 80, we're gonna gather information and we'll have some numbers to look at. Right? Okay, so moving on then to item I believe that's L in Integrity Commissioner appointment, and I think that goes to Cook.
Thank you. So some of you may be aware, our previous Integrity Commissioner, Mr. Andrew Commity, has submitted his retirement in November 2022. In the interim period, we have been meeting on another Integrity Commissioner and we were new appointee. There are quite a few guidelines requirements under the municipal act. I'm not going to go through all them to bore everybody. But there are some options available to secure the services of the new Integrity Commissioner, including advertising papers, subscriptions, recruitment firms, RFP process, seeking recommendations from neighboring municipalities, counties, etc. Most of those options are appropriate for those municipalities. However, In smaller municipalities such as ours, we've always taken the approach of seeking recommendations from neighboring municipalities and township solicitors, town solicitors, town clerks, etc. In 2019, the county actually did a joint RFP for integrity services. We were one of the municipalities that did not get on board with that at that point in time. We did have experience in integrity district committee that was appointed since, I believe, 2011. So we were satisfied with this, but we did not transition forward to the RFP process. With that RFP process, Mr. Tony Fleming from Command Swan, Hardy, Little, and Bonham, that's all of them, was selected. Out of that, there were a number of submissions, but Mr. Fleming was the ideal candidate. He is currently the integrity commissioner for over 50 municipalities across the province, including a number of municipalities within the region, as well as obviously the county. So there are multiple options available to council, including direct access to go to a fee or any other form. With that in mind, Mr. Fleming has submitted a proposal to me, and it is interesting this evening. Our previous integrity commissioner charged us an hourly rate of $340. Mr. Fleming is proposing $295 for his an hour, and he does use a lot of his associates to cut down on cost as much as possible, with doing a lot of the background work, him doing the final reports, interviews, etc. So with that being said, since there is a reduction in fee, it is best practice for our county and most municipalities that they have him already. His familiarity with the county and our township and working with staff and members of the building. I do recommend that so can be considered for the funding as their integrity commissioner.
Thank you, Clerk. So to everyone at the table that was in attendance at the United Counties orientation, Mr. Fleming wasn't available that day to do the integrity training portion that was there, but it was somebody from their office. Yeah, right. And you know, highly regarded. To me, this is a no-brainer as far as it goes to reduction in costs. Hopefully, we don't need them very much to begin with, but we certainly, I believe, we need to have one that you know, on offering us the services. It's we may have to go down those roads, unfortunately, and Mr. Fleming has offered up fantastic service in the past to many municipalities and many of our neighboring municipalities. So he's familiar with our area, which is good. So unless there's further discussion about Mr. Fleming at the table, I need a mover for the recommendation that says that the committee recommends that council appoint Tony Fleming as Township's Integrity Commissioner. So speak or move?
Move.
Okay, moved by Councillor Waddy Smale, second by Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh. So it's duly moved and seconded. Is there further discussion on it at all? Hearing none, then all in favor? Thank you, Mr. Fleming, for coming aboard. And I will say, I guess at this point, our many thanks to Mr. Andrew Tremaine for his work for the township and being willing to work on the township's behalf as our integrity commissioner over the past several years. Thank you, Mr. Tremaine, and good luck in slowing down your workload. Moving on to the procedural bylaw review. Fun. To the clerk, do you want to walk us through?
Through the chair, it's open for discussion. I have in the action report highlighted the areas that I have changed for the most part.
Yep.
So we can go through page by page if we want to just touch on where changes are made. There are certain cases where I've highlighted areas and there's deletions within the bylaw that may be just because I didn't like where it fit or I didn't like the wording, so I changed it and put it somewhere I thought was better.
Okay, I just have a couple of questions for clarity when it comes to me. And I don't know if it'll help everybody or not in the discussion, but there has been a move. I'm gonna just take over for 1 sec and say that there has been a move. I want to compliment the clerk for being very forward thinking with the switch from the use of Mr., Ms., you know, whatever to actually gender neutral pronouns in there. I think that it's 2023 and that's well done. My question when it comes to that, and I noticed this not so much here because we often use title, but I know when the deputy refers to me, sometimes he does refer to me as Mr. Mayor. So for my own comfort, is he breaking code of conduct and procedural bylaw by calling me Mr. Mayor if we pass this? Because if he is, I would struggle with that. It's just that the use of the terms in the wording of the document.
Through the chair, I wouldn't go to that extent at all. This was just a basic procedure. It's not saying that it's a mandatory that individual has to address you as they, them, theirs.
Just
It
the
is
word.
whatever everyone's comfortable with. There are a lot of places, including some of our staff that are now incorporating from their signature line of emails, their preferred pronouns. A lot of us haven't went to that extent yet, but I feel council members, committee members, members that are delegates, if they want to identify as whatever pronoun they so choose, in a lot of cases, they would make that known.
Sure. Yeah.
So I don't think it's gonna be breaking the code of conduct or the procedural bylaws, just using a more friendly term.
Yeah, and I think it more updated for sure. I think it's certainly a very progressive, you know, pragmatic stance. Well done. So good. I don't think it's risky at all. I just think that it's very supportive, and I think that it's very good in 2023. So well done for that one. Next one is so I noticed that CAO work gets changed in a couple of spots. And so my question is, if we're talking in terms of personnel, we've had several instances where we've had personnel discussions and it's been the CAO and everyone else has left the room. And that happens in instances where we have to talk about identifiable individuals or say things like pay scale grids, stuff like that. So if CAO can't take minutes, then what do we do in that instance?
So through the chair, whenever King Clerk supplemented that, I actually appointed our CIO as a deputy in my place.
Oh.
So that's always.
So he carries, there's ignorance on my part, so he is deputy clerk then, so he.
Just in case I get hit by a bus or were those circumstances where everyone's been excused from the meeting except for the CIO, rather than doing it on a one-off basis where I have to write a letter, hand it to him, you guys receive that, saying I delegate him temporary duties. It's just part of the duties that we're.
Okay. So excuse my ignorance on that one, and congratulations on being a deputy. It was fantastic for my
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think about in 2019 at the primary, this was a originally passed. The organization structure was a but through the 2019 organization structure change, ACAO.
Yeah.
It's just cleaning up.
Yeah, it was more for the minuting of those session minutes that I was worried because I wasn't sure that without that title, we would have to have somebody who we were talking about in the room being part of the discussion. So and that could make it weird and awkward and difficult. So again, with the CAO to / or whatever it was /clerk / designate. And this is maybe a housekeeping thing, but it says CAO or clerk or designate. would we read that Jerry's probably loving this if he's watching? Would we get rid of the or and put a comma? So it would be CAO, comma, clerk or designate, or should it be or?
Through the chair, I personally did the or please, not both of those are mandatory for all meetings. I could take vacation and it could be just the CIO there, or a CIO could take vacation. As long as one of them are there or are designated.
Okay.
So I either plan or works would work.
Was my inner dairy getting cycled there, so, and the last one, I think I'm gonna leave my last one until everybody else has, I just thought that might clear up a couple of little things, I do have one more, but I'm gonna leave it until then, so. Opening it up to the members for those that have comments or concerns or things that we've asked for this. To come forward, the procedural changes, is there anything in there that anyone wants to talk about or change or, move on before we go?
Yeah, there's a lot of changes.
There's a lot of changes.
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So fair game, everything going. I did want to go page by page. Yeah, it's rather. Whoever has questions forward.
Anyone ready to go? Anyone want to speak? I think before he does speak, you can continue to think for a second. I just want to compliment you on the work that you did on this, because we did have a discussion. We did throw a lot of things at you in that discussion, and it was you did a very good job, herding the cats, so to speak, to get it to where it is, and for me to go through it the way that I did. And I tried to rip it up quite a bit. And there's really not much to, I think you gathered our conversation that we had at the table and what we wanted to see come forward. I think you gathered it really, really well, and you've articulated it fantastically. So good job. No, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. The chair
Have time?
to Rebecca, on the consent agenda, if we're not happy with something on that, I just want to get that clear about at the night when we're approving that agenda. Can we stop and go back to something in that agenda?
So
When it comes to when we read the consent, that means we're reading it without any information or.
So through the chair, the presiding officer, the chair, the mayor, whoever it is that's running this committee meeting or council meeting, that person would go through the items that we prepare and put on the consent agenda. Item by item to say, okay, is everyone comfortable with keeping this on? If those items are kept on and it's affirmative, yes, then those are moved through with the motion. Zero debate, zero discussion, nothing, they're good, they're routine, they don't need to be further discussed or brought forward. If a member of council committee feels that they want to discuss, debate, comment on a certain item, they ask for that item to be held, and it's not going to be passed in that single motion. That will be dealt with at the regular item on the agenda, and there will be full debate.
For clarity on that one, does and can the consent agenda include the minutes of previous meetings? So unless like tonight, where we all had an opportunity to point out, grammar and discuss an item that was on there. If it was a council meeting and there were all of the different committees, and we wanted to approve the committee meeting minutes as a consent agenda. If you had an item on tonight's minutes that you wanted to pull, you just say, can we remove, the previous committee of the whole administration and operations minutes, and then we can discuss it. We'll pass the other 5 sets, and we can discuss that set. Correct? And it's the same way with reports and items and anything else that's on.
Correct, they being referred to and with the way I have proposed, rather than. It depends on where you look, there's across the board, 101 different ways that we approach. I have it so that way consent agendas are kind of drafted like we do our regular agendas, where myself or the CIO would put items on that we think may be routine in nature, and may not generate a lot of sections. For instance, a lot of our quarterly reports, or our video, or our weekly report, for those things. And then we consult with whoever the chair is of that committee with the meeting, and if somebody wants to pull something, if it's not comfortable, that's not a problem. And we're able to modify it as we go along. A primary example is work fairly well. They're not using certain things to the extent I'm looking to use it for to maximize the but they actually refer on their consent agenda the item number down in the agenda package. So it's easier for community council members as well as the follow.
Right.
A lot of other places just refer to committee it's coming from, but that doesn't always as much. There's a multitude of ways of how we can approach this. This is just the general basis of getting things forward.
Right. Yeah, I think often, and this is sort of how I mean. For me, how I think of it is it's kind of like when we get correspondence, right? Because we get correspondence, it's a big package of a lot of reports, a lot of items from all over Ontario, and we get it presented to us on a weekly basis. And if we want to discuss something out of that, we pull it out of correspondence, ask for it to be added to an agenda as a discussion item. Otherwise, we just approve correspondence. And so I think consent agenda very much the same way. We've had good fulsome discussions, debates at the table on all of these things. And when they get to that final council meeting, if somebody wants to pull it out of correspondence, they're more than welcome to pull it out, vote against it, have further discussion on it. So we're second thought to steal your words. To do that though, it's good, and we all know it through correspondence anyway. So for me, that's how I look at the consent agenda. It will be a bit of a change for everyone, but I think on agendas like not maybe like this one, but on some long agendas at council, it'll help speed the process along.
To the chair, especially if committee and council's comfortable with when we move to consent agendas, especially at council level, to pass everything on that consent agenda under one motion. There are some municipalities that do a consent agenda motion, but then to defeat the efficiency purpose, then they continue to do all the motions and sign them, read out who's moving and seconding them. If you're comfortable with on the consent agenda, that's the motion. So I'll refer to that. If something's pulled, us as staff would always have the right to so we'll just have to know that people are for the individual. Once it goes to the vote recording module in the iPads and our end of it, that'll be a whole other ballgame. I'm working in these right now to figure out the ins and outs of how that's going to be implemented, but I can't really move forward with that section until we get this finalized.
And I think worthwhile, and it may go to what the deputy mayor's point is, that if the meeting is moving along quickly and he misses something, and it gets passed in the consent agenda through the procedural bylaw, as long as you notice it during that meeting, you know during whatever item, and you mentioned it, you have the ability through the procedural bylaw, as long as you notice it during that meeting, to pull it, okay, and have it discussed at a further meeting.
Correct, yes. Ideally, once it's done, consent is done.
Yeah.
You should notice it in your review before the meeting.
Yeah, right.
Be prepared. But there's nothing saying you can't. Ideally, you don't do that though.
Right, but there is a mechanism in case, because I know that may be a fear for those that haven't used it in the past. I'm super comfortable with it. I think, many of the other committees and the other stuff that we sit on use them, and they're it's your duty to read your reports. And it's our duty to make sure that the public is provided with those reports. So a lot of times there isn't a whole lot of discussion or debate at the table in receiving them anyway. So, but it is your duty in your elected duty to do that. So yeah. Okay, so further discussion on procedural bylaw. Anyone else? Good catch on that. That's good. Further?
So, I mean, honestly, I had asked a similar question to the clerk this morning and got an answer similar to what you just said, basically about just about, what if we had to, and how close we were discussion. So I'm happy with that answer. That's really the concerns I had. I think we captured everything else we talked about very well. Didn't have anything else to bring up.
Don't see any more nods. I have definitely one more. And it comes to what day of the, not what day of the month. But when it comes to council meetings being on the fourth Monday of the month. On a 5 Monday month, which happens sometimes more often than others during the year, right? So I'd really like to see a change from the fourth Monday of the month to the last Monday of the month. And the reason is if we are to move that port meeting from the Wednesday to that, it does give us that extra couple of days to do that. And I think my argument for that to the group around the table is, and we've heard it from staff on many occasions, that there isn't enough time to implement things that get discussed or put together at CDC and at administration and operations before council. There's a big rush to get things done. So if we did move it to that extra Monday, it would provide a little bit more space and an extra week of time to review things before we get to that. So it certainly would help staff have a little bit more time to do that, and it would further that we would get the port meeting moved from the Wednesday into that Monday slot, freeing up the third Monday on a 5 Monday month for no meeting night that night. So keeping everything else the same, just and for added clarity, it ends up becoming the last Monday of every month. So there is consistency. I know it was said before there wouldn't be consistency, but for me, having it the last Monday of every month is consistency. So if I could, I'm hoping that there's a bit of support around the table. If there isn't, then there isn't. Such is life. But I'm hoping that folks will consider that change to the last Monday of the month instead of the fourth Monday of the month.
Well, 2 months of the year, so I'll give it.
No, it's more months. I think it's more months this year.
Just July, January.
It's 4 this year, isn't it? It's 4 this year.
There's the other one.
Yeah, they're early in the year. I think the one may have already went by. I think there were 4 in January or 5 in January, right?
In July and October. Yeah, I'll give it to you, Mr. Mayor.
And if it isn't, it doesn't. It's just I really want to see what we end up doing on those other months, on those 5 months where the Wednesdays come into play on the port, and we're going to see it again. We're seeing it again this month, where port should be the 15th. It's been asked to be moved down further in the calendar because there isn't enough time to prepare. So in those months where that extra Monday is, it will give that extra week for that extra bit of time for preparation. So
Maybe it wasn't this, but I felt like there was a flip side argument against this that was brought up, and I can't remember what it was. Was there something that was
continuity. So because it's not the fourth Monday of every month. I believe the argument then was that it was the fourth Monday always of every month.
I'm gonna say it was different through the chair. I think the clerk had something to say that it's certainly. Well, that was the clerk. I don't think it was spot. I think a counter argument. So I can't remember what it was. Why we didn't like it.
That's clearly laid it out.
Yeah, through chair. I played devil's advocate last month at the port meeting. We're shuffling now potentially the port to the third Monday, and then on these months that we the fifth Monday to now be the fourth Monday, and then shuffling down on the months that we have the fifth Monday, council to the fourth to the fifth to accommodate the port. That also delays all of our staff reports another week. And we usually as staff here utilize that fifth Monday to prepare reports for the coming month.
Which is the, which is the opposite argument that we had for combining administration and operations was to give extra time. For not to have the 3 committees, to have 2 committees, and so that it would create an extra week. We're trying to create that extra week again.
Through the chair, that's correct, but if we're gonna be shuffling
I'm-
the report as well, then that uses that, and then shuffle the Monday down. For especially for awarding attendance, that would be a factor next week. I can get complaints about that.
We have to award tenders for the port. So we wouldn't do it, it would give us extra time in CDC, and it would give us extra time in administration and operations. But because it doesn't give us enough extra time for the port, it doesn't make sense, it's 4 extra days.
Through the
3
chair,
extra
for
days.
them, yes, but it could possibly delay ours, right, an extra week. Again,
It's 2 days.
does not bother me one way or the other, I'm just doing for consistency sake, for then rotating 2 committees with council rather than 1. We'd be shuffling the port from 3rd Monday, or technically 3rd Wednesday, right now, 4th, which we do a lot anyways, to accommodate 1 committee. Really. Wow, the rest of our staff are on time each week.
Why can't we have the court at the 3rd Monday? Of each one. Of each
There's
one,
no reason, yeah,
right,
that's where the court comes into play.
yeah,
They're wanting it later.
and have the last Monday. As a council meeting,
I'm again, I'm playing devil's advocate.
and it leaves the 4th Monday open. 3 months, July, August, September.
Through the chair, just guarantee the court will.
So- And it'll be available if should they choose, I suppose. Now it wouldn't be available if they choose. We'd have to keep it on the Wednesday and move it to the 4th Wednesday.
Either way, I think the shuffle's gonna happen. I just think it's gonna be inevitable.
That's my, I just think having the meetings on the Monday nights. Again, works well. It would be like, I think the deputy just said it would be on every 3rd Monday. For the port, and if needed, then it would ship to the port on a 5 Monday month, should it choose to move, otherwise it would stay.
Yeah, it's got a 3rd or a 4th. But not a Wednesday.
Yeah, so that's my suggestion, would be to change that, but I haven't heard or nodded or seen much other than myself, the person to my left, so.
Yeah, and I just knew the concerns, I don't have. I shouldn't say I don't care either way, it doesn't matter to me either way. So, I can be flexible there.
Other members? Input, comments?
I'm with that, let it be advertised for that next.
If you want to weigh in?
Do we need any amendment on the recommendation?
I just might consider that the reason court meeting was always on Wednesday when it was set up was because that's the middle of the week for corporations. It's generally 4 or 5 months of the year. Mondays are really busy. We've been shut down on Saturday and Sunday. Crops are coming in, crops going out and stuff. Mondays are generally busy days for them. That's why we all set it on a Wednesday to start with. So.
What's the difference of a Monday to a Wednesday? The farmers are farmers.
Yeah, but not farmers, but not for the ones bringing in crops and stuff. But they're busy in administration on Mondays, booking in.
So, Richard, I think the ask in this meeting here is, can we move to the last Monday of every month, though, right? We're not talking just for committee at this point in time.
Good question. Is the port committee covered under this?
Through the chair, no, it's not. This is just.
Good point. Yeah, good point. So we don't need to decide that. We could just do the last Monday of every month regardless.
Is that what we're doing? Last Monday?
If there's a nodding of heads.
I'm okay with that.
Okay with that? You comment on the last Monday of the month other than important? No, well, I know you don't, but I value your insight. So certainly something I hadn't thought of.
If the Katie for all the guys that maybe remember it's always the last Monday, you don't have much shiver the 5 Mondays.
It's always the last Monday. There you go. That's my point. Okay. Okay, so then I think then there was direction then to change that from the 4th Monday to the last Monday. And I think that's the only other. I think that was the only other, sorry.
To the chair, just to go back to that point, in December, we're still okay
Yeah.
with holding it on the second Monday?
December's a different piece. Yeah. And and committee, so I did have in my notes, committee minutes. Oh, so in the process of the way that it was written to the clerk, I think it has the approval of the committee minutes after the consent agenda. Am I correct in that? In sort of the order of the agenda? And my question is, my question is then, is that to accommodate the minutes, I think, and I think you've sort of answered that, but I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that.
So through the chair, the consent agenda comes before any other action items, so that way if something is happening, it can be dealt with at the appropriate place.
All right, so that was my last point, and thank you for that, and again, thank you for herding the cats and certainly bringing together. I don't know how you did it, but you brought together a very clear document out of a very scattered conversation. So thank you for your work on that. Now, is there further discussion on this? Is everybody comfortable with it? I assume everybody should assume. I know everybody has read it. Are there further questions or discussion with anything that is inside this at all? If not, is there a recommend? I didn't put a star on this one. Is there a recommendation for it?
Should you have a recommendation that committee recommends the council adopt the updated procedural bylaw as attached? There'll be the one minor amendment at number 6 for changing the fourth to last.
Yep.
And just as a reminder that the procedure must be done first and second reading 1 month. So it comes forward for second reading, first and second reading only in February, and then third and final.
So and there still could be changes before third reading if somebody comes up with something else that they wanted to. Okay.
Before we move on, if I may, one item that we haven't touched upon, I just want to check. Nobody brought it up as an issue at home meeting schedule B, the last item for recording of closed meetings. Nobody highlighted as an issue. I threw it in there just to see if that's a lot. We're all closed meetings of council committee shall be recorded for the purposes of any closed meeting investigation. Only one copy of the recording to be kept in a secure location. This is now what was informed through CTO role and the ministry and all best practice. It wouldn't be published. We recorded on a separate quarterly system, and it would be on obviously my system only for investigative purposes. They determined through multiple ombudsmans and closed session investigative processes that just general minutes are, as we know, summary. And we don't currently record, we don't audio, we don't anything. Just wondering what the feel is. It's not required at this stage. I'm just trying to get it to you.
I will wait. Go ahead. Does anyone have any comments?
No, I saw that. I didn't have any concern about it, to be honest, so that was, you know, you can record it as fine. I mean, it's not obscure, but you know, you're discussing things that are very intensive nature, so I hope we put it there honestly on YouTube or anything like that, so I was okay with it.
Further? I think again, you know, from and I know the folks around this table have all talked about, you know, openness, transparency, and to do that, and to have it, to know that when we go into closed session, I know this was a big thing for you. Councilor Ward, when we do go into closed session, you know, and there are those long meetings that are in there, and this gives, I believe, the public, I like this, actually, I think it gives the public an assurity, while they won't necessarily have access to it, if there has to be an integrity complaint, that it can be viewed. It can't be, well, they talk about behind closed doors, there's actually a recording of it. And I think for me personally, from that openness, that transparency, that clarity, you know, it gives an accountability level that we don't currently have, and that I think is excellent. And I know Councilor Ward has spoken about it in the past, and I know we need to be able to speak openly in closed session without fear of repercussion, but at the same time, we do have to be accountable for those discussions that we have, and the way that we conduct ourselves inside that protected area. So I applaud this. I think that it's great that it's in there. Well done.
One of those ones, nobody brought it up, I just wanted to make sure.
Good. Further discussion on it from anyone? We're good. Okay, so we need a motion. All right, so just give me 1 second, I'll get to the next. It's gonna take me a little while. It's long. Do you want it? Sure.
It's that committee recommends that council adopt the update.
Okay, and I need a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Chris Ward and seconded by Councillor Waddy Smale. Is there further discussion to adopting the updated procedural bylaw with one tiny little change to it? Any further discussion? Then all in favor? Unanimous. All right, so Mr. Lemon, I believe you've probably been, you know, sitting very patiently waiting for your opportunity to dazzle us with the water report. So do you want to proceed?
Yeah, through the chair, owners of municipal water pollution control systems are required to ensure that an annual report is submitted to the MECP prior to March 31st of the following year, which meets the conditions of the routine of our ECA. The report had an executive and system description of our process. System highlights our average daily flow was 967 cubic meters a day, or 40% of the capacity of our system. Peak daily flow rate was in 2022 was 3,707 cubic meters a day. The report also summarizes our preventative maintenance program, as well as operational problems both at our plant and within our collection system, and corrective actions that we completed. There's also a section regarding spills and bypasses for the reporting year. We did have two. One was a force main break in June, and a UV system failure in July of last year. The summary, we also have a summary of our biosolids treatment and removal, which we had 667 cubic meters of biosolids were removed. And also in the report this year that I didn't include in previous years, I included graphs showing our annual effluent averages for a variety of parameters versus our objective and compliance limits for all data from 1997 to 2022, which in effect is the start of when the wastewater plant was built. So it gives me a good idea of how efficient the treatment process has been for 20-some years. If there's any questions?
Before we go into, before I open it up into two questions on the Cardinal report, just you sort of stole my thunder with what you said about the last 20 years. I just, you know, this is another fantastic report showing how well managed and well run and well understood by the pros that take care of our water system, how well we do. So well done, and thanks for keeping it so good and so well done. So now I'll open it. I'll go first. Open it up.
So I would like to echo, I stole my thunder, but I stole your thunder. I echo that these are nice professional reports. I was impressed with those. they have slit shunts and everything, and you know, when you look at a lot of readings versus what the tolerance is, it's amazing that we're great essentially from that perspective. So thanks for all the work you and your team do to make this reality happen. It was looking at the cardinal in 25, I guess it is your annual flow. And it's kept basically in half over those 25 years. Do we know, is there some cause for that, or is that on slide, on slide 105, I guess it is. Or sorry, page 105 and 141, the cardinal WPCP total annual flow?
Yeah, the annual flow, it's decreased over the years. I believe that's kind of what we were kind of wondering, but well, two main reasons. One, we did a lot of cure in place pipe work within the town, so that cut down a lot of infiltration within the cardinal. The second big one is water meters. The water meters, less water consumption, so they have flushing toilets, and you can see that pretty much about 2008 or 9 meters we put in, so that's a second big reason for that.
Like I said, good job, basically. So, yeah. Thank you.
I only had one, and it's more of a curiosity question than anything, and it goes back to the like the licenses and the classes for the folks that work there. And I know Mr. Shaw is a class 3. Is there a push to get yourself or any of the others up, you know, to the level 3 classification? Or
The way the regulation is, you can actually obtain your one license higher than what your system is. So I could actually go and write a class 3 if I want, or to choose to do that. Currently level 3 would be the highest we can go. I don't have in the short term, I haven't been planning to write another one, but it's on my list.
Yeah, it was just more of a curiosity thing when I was flipping.
But for the overall responsible operator, you do have to maintain licenses for the same. So if you're class 2, you gotta have at least class 2.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Further questions on this report, or can we move to the next one?
Councilor Chair, Eric, class 2 is when you say class 3 is that the size of plant you can run? Like if you had a class 3, can you go to all on their plant?
You could go to another facility that has a class 3 plant, so it's based on your system size. So we're class 2, so owner director of operations has a class 3, one higher than our system. But yes, you could go to another city.
Which would make you more money as a class 3, correct?
No, it makes it less.
In our city, that's less.
Well, I'm just saying, if we pay for everything in class 3, then he leaves us. Just thank you. I just want to tell
A lot of budget talk happening up here. Okay, so further question?
I just you have one, yes, and then we'll move forward. So on page 104, the annual bio generation removal, back in 205, we had a real high 1100 annual removal, and then in 2022 it's down to 600. Is that just better? What's that cost from? Is that just better training, better maintenance?
Typically, I would say lowering because our flow is dropping. You also can get less biosol building up in your plant. So looking back at previous years, I think there's going to be a direct correlation between your flow rates and the level of biosols. We also used to take in 730 truck loads of sewage multiple times a day or even a week.
Oh,
that stopped.
yeah.
So that could also have a bearing on that.
Okay, yes, go ahead, please. To the chair, the floor.
Through the chair, just one other thing is process changes also. I mean, it's gone with the new SCADA system, which is more, I believe, more effective breaking down solids. And just to that on how the sludge is kept in large thickened tanks outside. And I think in the past practice on how that was broken up and delivered into the trucks is different now. They use a submersible or a gas pump and
recirculate and break it up, so we don't have, it's easier to vote.
Yeah.
And less,
That was
less waste.
Thank you.
We're good? Yep. Okay, so we're moving on to letter O then, I believe, which is the carbon industrial. Oh, sorry. Oh, there is, I don't have a spelling on one either, so my bad. So I'm getting there, I'm trying to scroll back to it. Oh, there it is. So that recommendation is that committee recommends the council receive the 2022 annual report for the Cardinal Water Pollution Control Plant and direct staff to submit the report to the MECE prior to the March 31st deadline. Can I have a mover for that motion? So moved. Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh, seconded by Councillor Chris Ward, all in favor? Unanimous. Moving on to letter up, which is the 2022 Cardinal and Industrial Park Drinking Water System Summary Reports.
Owners of municipal drinking water systems are required to ensure that no later than March 31st of the following year, a water system summary report is prepared according to Central Section 2 and 3 of Schedule 22 of Ontario Regulation 17003. The report must be provided to the operating authority and presented to the council. So the summary report also includes kind of an executive summary, and so just some high level points. The average daily flow in 2022 was 411 cubic meters a day, or 12% of the rated capacity system. The maximum daily flow was 1,162 cubic meters per day. We did have one exceedance, but part of the regulation is that you got to compare your peaks and daily flow rates compared to your license. So we did have one exceedance on December 21st due to our water main break. We went to 27 liters per minute when you're only supposed to go to 60 liters a minute for about 30 seconds. And again, that was due to the water main break. So the report also summarizes our preventative maintenance program, unplanned maintenance activities both in the water plant and the distribution system. And there's a table there that summarizes our peak flow rates compared to our license. And also our summary of our capital projects for the year.
Good, thank you, Mr. Roman. Appreciate it. Okay, so comments, questions for Mr. Rummer on the report in front of you.
Just a great report.
Make a comment.
Just a great report. Yeah, thank you, guys. Well done.
I will echo certainly the deputy mayor's comments on the report. They're always clear, they're always concise. The reports are always fantastic, and it leaves no doubt that our water's safe, great hands and very good. So well done. It's the one thing that if there was ever anything that it doesn't make me nervous, it's these things that I'm feeling nervous. But if there was ever one thing that scared me out of orientation was our responsibility for safe drinking water and safe drinking water. So thank you for the great work that you continue to do. So questions on the report?
Sorry, that also just capture the industrial water as well. And
The chair, I was going to briefly summarize that.
I'll wait there.
The industrial park water system, we had a monthly average water consumption of 4,728 cubic meters, and we had an increase of approximately 20% compared to 2021. We contributed that increase to a higher industrial demand for water. There was no adverse water quality incidents in the system last year, and again, just routine maintenance in the system. There was no significant unplanned.
No, through the chair.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I don't know, I've been a capacity planner for decades at this point in time. So when I look at the slide on page 135 and 141, the industrial park annual water consumption, it looks to me like we're starting, and it might just be that this 2022 is an anomaly, but it seems like we're getting awfully close to that roughly 80 to 85% capacity rate there. Do we have more capacity that we can buy, to increase that should we need to, or is that,
There is a limited amount we have to go over the amount of for fire protection and kind of one-offs, but I believe the limit is I think there is the I just don't have it in front of me, sorry, to if we do exceed the 72,000.
Yeah, through the chair, there is, if you notice in that chart, up until around 2016, we were basically at 60,000. The new agreement with Prescott increased that capacity to around 6,000 cubic meters a month or 72,000. There is an ability to increase that to 7,000 cubic meters a month. Should we reach that threshold of the 85%, although that is subject to some additional negotiation and the availability of that. I think at least as of right now, we're comfortable in the fact that additional capacity is within the Prescott treatment system. And I think that staff had a couple of instances in 2022 where one of our industrial users had some water valve malfunctions that certainly increased the amount of cubic meters they were at. It was actually going to sanitary sewer for a few extended days before discovered any well. So I would put 2022 as a little bit of an anomaly, but we certainly it's something that staff monitoring mostly see. If we find that we're not being promoted that, then that's what we need to be opening up conversations with the Prescott.
thank you very much. Steve. Yeah, absolutely. It was just, I know that I also know that he loves to pull the trigger at the 85%, but I also know that's about the time you start really thinking about it. So I appreciate it. I know that. So it's there. Yeah.
Further comments at all on the two reports in front of us? Anyone going once, going twice? All right, so there is a recommendation attached to these. I will catch up this time. That committee recommends that council receive the 2022 water summary reports for the Cardinal and Industrial Park water systems, moved by Deputy Mayor Steve Dillawa and seconded by Councillor Waddy Smale. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All right. And done, and we are on to the Ferguson Green Maintenance Tender Award. And looking to, I'm assuming the CAO for this one, or who will speak to?
Through the chair, I'll have the director of conservation highlight this report.
Thank you, CAO. Fire away.
For the chair, so the Ferguson Municipal Green was originally constructed in 1982. 5 of the properties identified in the original assessment have since been 7 in smaller parcels. Late 2021, reassessment of benefited properties was undertaken by the township's drainage superintendent. Letters were sent to affected property owners, and a public meeting was held on March 9th, 2022, to hear any concerns that they might have. On August 5th, 2022, a tender was issued by Rear Galloway on behalf of the township. Originally, the cost was $29,350 plus non-rebated HFP. The lowest bid came in at $47,500. Tender was canceled and reissued again in January 16, 2023. It closed just on the 31st of January. The results of the public tender were as follows. So there's a chart on page 139 and 141 that shows we had 7 proponents bid on this project. Lowest being Willis Kerr at a total tender price of $29,055.69. The bids were reviewed by staff and the Galloway Engineering Group, and
recommendation by your government is attached for council's consideration. So I think I can.
No, good. All right, so let's open it up for discussion or for comments. No, it's pretty straightforward. Isn't it? Okay, further comments or discussion at the table? I just have one, and it's partially, there's probably more to the CAO than it is the director of operations, and it's just more for this brain. When we see such, well, I think we can throw out, you know, the one, obviously they were bidding on something I think very different. But even throwing out the top tender price, if we go to the lowest one and the highest one, there's a considerable difference between the two, and I know that happens often in a lot of the tenders. My question would be, and I know staff time is valuable, and we don't have a lot of extra time to do follow-ups with folks, but it would. Do we do interviews with any of the companies that bid after tenders are awarded, when they're so so much higher, to try to figure out how they interpreted the tender, and if there was an issue with interpretation? I know, like, if somebody asked questions, I'm sure under normal process that everybody would be provided with the question that was asked and the answer to the question. But I'm curious if we, in a follow-up with them, so that we can help, ourselves when we're writing tenders to get that more accurate process, because that's a huge discrepancy between the lowest and the second highest. So just for curiosity before we move.
Yeah, through the chair, with respect to the highest bid to securities, it's our understanding that they misread the tender and took the 16 meters as 16 culverts. They put on a unit price per culvert instead of just looking at actually the 16 meters. Their unit rate was actually the culvert rate. So it was just we were given that complete misread. Throwing that one out, we looked at 5 of the remaining 5 of the 7. And actually, they were like fairly close proximity and understanding. The only one that I believe that staff has not sort of follow up with is in-depth construction at this stage. But I would certainly say if there was a wider gap between the 5 and that 7 of 7, and then we certainly would have done some additional follow-up with respect to potentially being an issue with either with the wording of the tender documents, but I think we're pretty comfortable with respect to the 5 and the 7 being within that ballpark, so that the tender documents were clear enough.
Yeah, okay. And thank you for that clarification. And I should have known that staff would do that. It just makes me feel more comfortable, and especially in a if there are people watching this, that they actually understand that we do the follow-ups, and we try to make sure that everyone's clear and they're bidding on the exact same thing. So thank you for that clarity. With this, there is a motion or a recommendation, excuse me. And I think I'll bring it forward if there's no further questions. See any head nodding or anything. So the recommendation is this: it's that committee recommends that council award the Ferguson Municipal Drain Culvert Replacement Tender number EC-PW-MUNDR-23-01 to Willis Current Contracting Limited for the sum of $25,713 plus non-rebated HST, and direct staff to bill the upstream beneficiaries of the maintenance for the work as stipulated in the Drainage Act. So I need a mover for that. Moved by Councillor Smale, seconded by Councillor Chris Ward. Further discussion, further comments? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? Good, moving on. All right, so we are on to number 8, which is councillor inquiries, notices of motion. Does anyone have any inquiries or notices of motion to bring forward? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, the chair. I just have one, inquiry, and it's, Michael Jones, who I've been in contact with from, Ontario. Their companies in Brockville, their plants in Brockville, and they have different sewage treatment systems. And he's willing to have an open house tour of the plant for staff and for council if they like. I was in it 4 years ago. I told him we can only have 2 at a time with the council, and he was all for it. And I was talking to the CEO about it, and it's open for discussion, but this is just for information only. But it is a good, it's a good tour. I told him we'd probably try to get something going by the end of the month, so I'll leave that with you.
Okay, and we've been a lot of events for the willingness or the want to go on a tour of Taylor, and then well, yeah, if people want to go and have a peek, so maybe I can arrange that with staff. So anyone else have any inquiries or notice of motion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the mayor's report, and there really isn't a whole lot to the mayor's report. I keep them short. Don't worry. I do want to offer two things, and one would be to our staff. Again, I want to say about the flood, the broken pipe in chambers, and on the record and public, all here to the staff members and to their departments that came in and helped clean up and do all that extra work around the offices and get things put together. This room, the quickness, the speed that everyone did on a weekend, and the willingness to help out needs to be applauded, and to say thank you to everyone involved and all the departments involved in helping out all the individuals. So well done, everyone, staff. Thank you so much. Well, that one's great. And I spoke to the CAO earlier today about tomorrow, the possibility of following many other municipality offices across Ontario in honoring the funeral and the 102nd birthday, or what would have been the 102nd birthday for Hurricane Hazel Battalion. And so like many other municipalities, or most municipalities across Ontario, flags will be lowered in honor of Ms. McCallion. Fly high, Hazel. So that's it for my report. Number 10 is question period. I don't think that we have it. Veronica didn't have any questions. Good. So we have no closed session. I need to move report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh, seconded by Councillor Smale. It's not debatable. So adjournment. All in favor? Adjournment. 15 minutes to spare. I'll get better, I promise. That was a big one. It's a long one. I have a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff.